What's going on, everybody? Happy Sunday. Welcome to NFL Week 7. Already Week 7. That's right. And welcome to Fantasy Draft Morning Wood. I'm Eric Crane. I'm joined, as I am almost every Sunday, by Tony Niehaus and Hoop 2410. What's up, Tony? How we doing today?
Doing better this week now that I got my man the Hoopster back. He's spewing nonsense in the pregame here, but we got Crane not in the mountains in friggin' Tennessee or wherever in the world he was last week.
You had it right. I was in Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean we're back to normal, boys, and it's time to win some money.
Yeah, I'm feeling good about this slate. Hoop, how we doing today? Was it worth it to ditch us last week?
Oh, I can't remember. I didn't have a good week overall, so maybe not. I don't know. Man, yeah, just getting pounded pre-show about not knowing who's in the World Series. Like, I haven't watched one pitch of baseball, and Tony, for some reason, doesn't believe me. Like, like I said, I knew the Astros and the Yankees were playing, mainly because playing. Not got to fill me in. Who's in the World Series?
See, look at Tony shaking his head. I believe that Hoop.
I have no idea.
I believe he didn't.
Why am I going to make that up? Why am I going to make that up? I had no idea.
No, I believe you. I believe you didn't watch a pitch. I believe that for sure, but I don't believe you don't know who's.
All right. Well, maybe someone in the chat can fill me in since my partners here won't give me the
Crane already answered your bad joke.
I told you. I got you, man.
He's still acting like he doesn't know, Crane.
That's not. Why am I going to make that up?
Because Crane freaking told you, and you're still acting like you don't know.
All right, that's a good point. You caught me there.
Oh man, that's funny. All right,
I couldn't hear what Crane was saying because you're making fun of me too much.
Yeah, but I'm just glad that Tony's microphone works now, so now we can actually hear him make fun of you.
Yeah,
don't get me started talking about not being able to hear you. Last week you were in the mountain. I couldn't hear half the show. Don't get me started.
Hey, my mountain comments were phenomenal.
We're gonna win a mountain today. I might buy a helicopter after today's slate.
I like it. I like the idea of buying a helicopter. We need the heli maker. Like it. All right, before we jump into the slate, a few items to talk to you guys about. There's free premium this week. It's the GPB Final Takes and Crunch Time, all free, all part of the YouTube block. So, guys, check it out. If you're not a premium member, first off, what are you waiting for? Second of all, give it a look today. It's going to help you out and win a little bit of money. Also, the Fanduel Single Entry Series, that's starting up again. It's 6 weeks of contest. Jump in. And the 6 finalists at the end get to go to the WFFC party in Puerto Rico, play for their own prize pool. I'm pumped about that final being in Puerto Rico. Also, the contest that's going on with Vegas RotoGrinders badge. I'm going to go and list these names off because we appreciate y'all. It's Tipulo, Roto Idol, my bad, JCM Omen, In the Money. I like that one. Lex Uggs 350, Marshall, MJ Francisco, Relo for Real Though. I like that name too. Paul True Zin in 34. I probably screwed that one up. And MT15 SCU. All right. That's going to clean all that up. And guys, Hoop, how you feeling about this slate, man?
I'm actually feeling pretty good about it. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I think it's a solid slate in all formats, cash games and tournaments. A lot to like here, that's for sure.
Tony, how you feeling? Besides you're going to buy a mountain here shortly.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm excited. I'm super excited today. We got a big millie maker. We got some other good tournaments. Can't wait.
Yeah, but obviously make sure you check out the Fantasy Draft Contest, rake free again this week. Sign up there. Guys, rake free is no joke, especially when you're paying, like 15, 16% on all the other sites. You definitely want to be checking out Fantasy Draft and the rake free stuff that's going on there. Worth it to check out for sure. All right, let's go ahead and dive into the slate. We got the Dolphins at the Bills, 41-point total. Buffalo, 17.5-point favorites at home. And Hoop, you know the joke I'm going to make. It's the same joke I make every
week. You guys got to get a better joke.
Oh, see, it's not even a joke, though. It's reality. That's the best part about it.
The best part about it is, I'll tell you guys the even funnier part. So this is great. I don't know if you guys have watched that new RotoGrinders show with my man BA, Brandon Adams, but Mangone's talking to him about the slate. And one of his favorite sneaky spots is my Dolphins this week. I was loving it. It was funny. Mangone will appreciate it because he was on the show, but
Mangone's not awake yet. Are you kidding me?
Mangone's not awake? That man chat.
Mangone, how you doing?
Mangone, type in the chat. I know you're in there.
He's in there. We're already going back and forth. Just scroll
we're chatting?
Yeah. Scroll up. He's in there. Yeah, he's in there. He threw out Crane's stat about the Tigers pitching staff. Everyone making it.
I love it. The entire 2014 Tigers pitching staff has now made an appearance in the World Series. So
what a crappy organization. Oh, it's such a disaster. All the talent they had and got absolutely nothing out of it. So sad.
Yeah, well, so sad. Sorry. My Cardinals appreciate the World Series, though.
Yeah.
That's a good time. All right, so
that was a good one.
Tony,
where's Grandma's hat at? I can't process information here until I see Grandma's hat. Like, there we go. Now we're back.
No,
now you can ask me whatever you want.
No, you got to see the snapback. You can't put it on straight. Yes.
Yeah. It's all busted up.
Yeah. Now I can think. Now we're good.
All right, cool. All right, so
now we can hear Tony tout the Dolphins in there.
Yeah, this is a good hat to wear for the Dolphins segment.
He can tout the Dolphins in their 7.5 team total. Let's hear it.
I mean, the funny part is I haven't really played him since like week 2 besides my man Preston, but behave. I mean, his BA might have brought me back in a little bit. I need to I hate Miami today.
It's got to be, honestly, it's got to be like the worst possible spot of the NFL season, right? Is there a worse one? I don't think there can be.
I mean, until next week when they're in a similarly worse spot, like every single week this team's
in
a
worse spot. That's true.
But like Buffalo though has to be one of the worst. Like,
Buffalo's like one of the best home field advantages. You got this defense that seems pretty smothering, and especially so at home. Like there's like not a worse spot for me. Like I think this is the worst spot for the Dolphins offense.
And now Brett wants to take Miami.
That makes it even better.
Yeah, don't worry. Britt is still shorting the line 0.5 point because Britt gonna Brit, you know. If you're gonna take Miami, get the hook, Britt. Like, what are you doing, man? All right. Anyways, we've spent way too much time on the Miami Dolphins because, well, they're the Dolphins.
They're the Dolphins, and Tony's on the show, so I mean, we have to. I mean, that's the most.
You guys always got to get your weekly joke in that you guys think funny.
At least it's the first game, so we can just move on after that.
I do like that actually. Yeah, get that out of the way right out of the gate.
I can't wait till they're on a bye week so I can make the joke that they're still before.
Hey, I'll tell you what, when they're on a bye, their team total's not going to move all that much.
I know.
You guys missed your calling. You guys are funny.
All right. Hoop, let's talk about this Bills side. Obviously, you can play the Bills defense, but there's some really good matchups here, and I can't shake the feeling that these guys aren't really going to be all that owned. Josh Allen, obviously a great spot. The question is, will he need to throw? Went off twice last year against this Dolphins team. I'm sure everybody's been talking about that this week. John Brown, the guy that I think one of the wide receivers a lot of people want to play. Both Frank Gore and Devin Singletary in good spots. Singletary returning from injury. Do they split snaps? What do they do? I don't know. What do you think about this Bills side?
Man, Tony is just pounding that keyboard. Wow.
Because I fixed my mic. It might be loud.
Yeah, that is.
Was it loud when I typed?
It was definitely loud, yeah.
That was a pound job right there.
I think I got to fix my kids jacked my mic up. My game's off here with the mic.
I love just blaming the kids for everything.
It works though. You got to always blame the kids.
I mean, all that pounding to say that a little known fact you own 17 NBA jam. Oh my God, this is a disaster.
You're the one talking about like stats from 1996 Tigers stuff. Like you were in there.
It's cool to know because I always thought.
That's cool to know. Get off me.
All right. Well, after Tony's pound jobs, Hoop, talk to us about the Bills.
So I mean, just 30 team total, essentially, slightly below 30. That's always a good number. I think a good. Don't even mind Cole Beasley. I mean.
Dean, how could you? You know this was Dean's doing. You know that he's sitting there going, I screwed up Crane's show. Oh, Dean, I cannot take it. Anyways, Hoop was talking about Cole Beasley, broke the slate, broke the stream. Definitely not breaking the slate with Cole Beasley. So that's it. We like Josh Allen. We like John Brown. We like moving on. Let's talk about the Texans at the Colts. Welcome back, everybody. I think I forgot to say that. 46.5 point total. The Colts 1.5 point favorites. And Tony, this is a game that everybody's going to play T.Y. Hilton. Everybody. We've got him projected at 25% ownership. I think he's going to be higher than that. I'm not playing a chalky T.Y. Hilton. I like the spot. I don't like the ownership in tournaments. What are you doing with T.Y. Hilton here, Tony?
Yeah, I don't know if I like playing him on my main team, but I definitely like him. I mean, at home, there's a reason he's chalk. He always goes off in this spot. He goes off at home a lot.
I mean, it's just like the most mispriced guy. Definitely fadeable. 2010, which I don't think there's much to play when he's at home, indoor or at home, and he happens.
Had the same.
Dismissing
it. It's fine. I'm sure he's fine. But I'm not going to play.
Like,
All right, what do they say? Third time's a charm? That's what I always hear, that we're going to be okay. Our apologies, guys. We don't mean to make everything go flaccid on the morning wood, but that's how it goes sometimes. So we're talking Colts and Texans. We're going to try and fly through these a little bit quicker. We're 20 minutes into the show, and we've talked about the Dolphins and the Bills. So we're going to do what we can to get through this show, though I understand next you have Dean and some poor guy that has to work with Dean. So you know what? If we take a little bit of extra time, Dean, you're welcome. You got to get your materials somehow. So, all right, Hoop, Texans, Colts, what do you like here?
Yeah, I do agree with, I don't know if the people heard it or not, but you kind of like the under in this game. I kind of agree with you. I don't know, like if the Colts are going right, they like to like muddy up these games and make them kind of nasty. And I could see them doing it here. Just seems like I'm big on the Texans overall this season. I think they're better than most, but this seems like a bad spot. The Colts coming off a bye at home. The guys are starting to get healthy. So, I'm higher on the Colts overall. I think Marlon Mack's a play, not, a necessity, but I think it's a guy to consider. But mostly off the Texans, just for that reason. Just seems like a letdown spot, and it could be a nasty game like you alluded to. What
about you, Tony? Are you liking the under here as well?
No, but I don't love the over either. It's just one of those spots that I'll probably play TY, maybe play a little bit of Hopkins and Fuller, and that's it. Like, I don't love the game, though.
Are you playing the 2K Colts defense, Hoop?
On the list. I mean, I always, if I can, look to go cheap at defense, especially on Draftkings where there's a big discrepancy. But man, that Bills defense, man, that's just that one's calling my name today. So I mean, ideally, if I can get them in, I'm going to look to do it. But it's tough. I mean, I think the builds are kind of tough on DraftKings. We'll talk about a guy later that could open things up quite a bit, but starting to sound like a little bit more of a risky play than it did earlier in the week.
All right, Arizona at the New York Giants, 50.5 point total. The Giants 3-point favorites at home. And Tony, this is one of those games, and you and I talked about it on XM on Friday, that we're like, we just like this game because even if the game goes under, even if there's not a lot of scoring, there's got to be a lot of fantasy goodness, especially on PPR sites like Fantasydraft. So, Tony, I think there's a ton to like in this game. What about you?
Yeah, I don't think the game goes crazy like some people do, but I like the players just because, like the Giants side, you got a few guys that are going to get all the work. I mean, you got Saquon, Ingram, Tate. I like all three of them a decent amount. And then Arizona, David Johnson's officially in, right? Or not officially, but
he's going to play.
He's going to play.
Yeah, so you got him and Fitzy that way. So I don't think the game – I agree with what you said, Crane, right out of the gate. I think might not score. Even if it was 20-17, I think there's going to be a lot of points between the guys that should get the points here.
Yeah, and again, you mentioned DJ on the other side. The fact that he's going to be low owned is just beautiful. Hoop, what do you think about this game?
Yeah, it's a very nice game for DFS purposes. I mean, I like the Giants here a little bit more than I did earlier in the week, getting all their guys back. You got Barkley, you got Ingram, you got Tate. You guys mentioned them. I think the Slayton guys even in play has some big play upside that we've seen so far. Daniel Jones I like quite a bit, so I'm more interested in the Giants side, but also have a lot of interest in the Cardinals. Murray, David Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald. I'm done taking chances. I guess I haven't taken a ton of chances on these cheap Cardinals guys.
Shocker.
Yeah, I'm not even going there. There's like other spots. So I'm not going to take a chance on the Sherfield, Johnson. I mean, who the hell knows? Pharaoh Cooper's out there getting a lot of snaps. I'm just going to play the main dudes. And they're all in a good spot, like we said, but definitely prefer the Giants side here.
Well, Christian Kirk is he's still questionable. He's going to be a game.
They said he's out.
Oh, all right. Let me just homer into the bushes and for Sweets DJ. I don't think Chase Edmonds is a crazy play today. Like,
let me verify that. Oh yeah, okay. He's likely out.
Okay.
Out.
Like Chase Edmonds, I know it feels a little bit weird saying a backup running back is saying he's viable, but I look at the spot and I say, especially if Kirk is out now. They've been playing Chase Edmonds a ton lately. They're going to be playing him in the slot. They'll give him, maybe 5 carries or so, but that's not what we want out of Chase Edmonds. We want those pass catchers. So I like Edmonds as a really low-owned tournament option. The fact that DJ is going to be under 6%, under 7%, I have a lot of interest there as well. All right, Raiders at Packers, 47.5 point total. The Packers, 4.5 point favorites, despite basically missing their entire wide receiver core. Devontae Adams, he's out. Marcus Valdes-Scantling, I don't believe he's going to play. Geronimo Allison, he is questionable. Hey, way to go, Geronimo. Tony, we were talking about this a little bit ago. It's Lazard season for you.
Yeah, I mean, we need to see. This is the team we're kind of waiting on all the info from, but I think I like him. Hoop asked us while we were off the air if we like him, even if one or two of these guys play. I think I do, just because Rodgers likes him so much. I don't know, though. This is the trickiest spot. We almost need to get all the info before we fully decide on this game.
Yeah, and I would guess that Lazard's going to play regardless. There are just so many. And even if, MVS and Allison play, like they're so banged up. What do you think about this Packers side?
Yeah, it sounded like MVS is probably going to play, and then Allison probably sits. That's my guess. But I think Lazard's still in play. I mean, there's probably no quarterback in the NFL where I place emphasis on what they say more so than Aaron Rodgers. And, he basically drags Lazard off the sidelines, like says, come on, you're playing, and then just peppers him with targets, gets him the long touchdown. And, he had some nice comments about him after the game, basically saying, he deserves a chance and, I want him out here. So I'm going to buy that. And if one of these two guys ends up playing MVS or Allison, I think Lazard is still in play. I mean, MVS and Allison overall this season disappointed. And there's been a lot of plays where, Aaron Rodgers will throw these guys the ball and then he has that standard, what the F are you doing look on his face. So I think I'm on Lazard probably either way. He's going to get some time, assuming if both these guys play, it becomes a little bit riskier, but I think it's just going to be one of the two playing, and then he's still going to be out there.
I mean, I feel like if MVS plays, I think he's a really interesting tournament dart. Big play upside is going to be under 5%. I think that's really interesting. On the Oakland side, for what it's worth, I think Oakland's going to win this game. I don't know. I just have a weird feeling like this line. Tony, does this line look weird to you?
Oakland's like my favorite play of the day. One of my favorite plays. Like I love Oakland, and I like Waller, and I think Jacobs is one of my sneaky favorite plays. Yes. If you think Oakland wins, I think you should definitely be playing Jacobs today. And Waller, I always like Waller, but he's not exactly sneaky. But Jacobs is one of my favorite sneaky running back plays of the day.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Jacobs, and I think if you're playing like some Aaron Rodgers, some Lazard, I really like the idea of playing Jacobs on the other side. Hooper, you on Oakland too?
No, I think the Packers. It's funny because the Packers are like my favorite play of the week here.
Wow.
I think they absolutely crush here at home against the Raiders. So not on Jacobs, on Waller though. Like I said, I think the Packers have a big game here, beat them up pretty good. That should mean a lot of targets for Mr. Waller. So like Waller, like Lazard, and that's about it.
All right.
The one guy I do think is interesting for tournaments is Jamal Williams. Like he's looked so much better than Aaron Jones. Jones had that disastrous as a Monday night game. Like that was painful to watch.
He had such a bad game.
Such a bad game. And Williams has looked better. So I think he's interesting for tournaments. You have to imagine Jones on a short leash.
I mean,
at most he's going to play half the time without. I don't know how you could play. How could you play Jones?
Especially that price tag. Like
you just can't, right?
Yeah. Man, no.
Yeah. I don't think I'm playing Williams either. I think I'm just staying away from the situation. But again, I think Oakland wins. So, of course, I'm going to be playing the running backs. All right, Rams at the Falcons, 54.5 point total. The Rams, 3-point favorites on the road. And this is the game that everybody loves. Everybody loves this game. Everybody wants some Jared Goff. Everybody wants some Matt Ryan. Tony, we have 2 bad quarterbacks here. They're going to be chalky. Like, it's a really weird spot. But as we know, points are going to be scored. Tony, what do you think about this game?
Yeah, I mean, I love this game. I'm a little different with football where I don't mind playing this chalk like I say every week and just filter in maybe 1 or 2 low-owned guys with it. Atlanta is so terrible. Their defense is maybe the worst in football. The Rams need a win. I just don't see any way this game doesn't shoot out with the Rams getting the lead. Atlanta playing from behind like they always do, and somehow everyone gets there. Freaking Matt Ryan ends up with 400 yards every single week. I just don't see any way this game doesn't end up in the third. Like, the Rams are going to score 40 today. The Falcons will probably backdoor into the 30s. I love this game. Everybody in it, so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough not to like guys in this game. You know, Julio Jones, he's likely to be shadowed by Jalen Ramsey. I'm not really that interested in Julio. I like Calvin Ridley quite a bit. Hooper, as much as I don't like him, the matchup is good. Who do you like specifically on the Falcon side?
On the Falcon side, Matt Ryan is just he's phenomenal for DFS scoring, especially on the sites where you get the bonuses and whatnot. Just a phenomenal play. I mean, hitting 300 yards basically every game. I think it's been 5 in a row. Devonta Freeman has been solid in the last few games. I like him. Julio, not afraid of the matchup with Ramsey. I mean, it's a new team and all that. I know some people are writing Julio off because Ramsey's going to play. I just don't think that's a smart move. I like Julio for tournaments. I like Ridley, Hooper also in play. Just so many plays in this game. That's why, I'm just kind of to add on to what Tony said, like, I'm not worried about the ownership. I honestly don't think anyone here is going to be overly popular where you should be afraid. The only guy in this game that's going to be over the top popular is Cooper Kupp, and rightfully so.
He's going to smash too, though.
He should smash. And then if you don't want to play him, you have 2 other wide receivers on that same team that could also have big games in Cooks and Robert Woods. I think Cooks is like the best tournament play probably on the slate. Like, just a big play guy, hasn't had the chance to do it. This is just the perfect spot for the Rams. I mean, just perfect. They love getting these guys down the field, slants across the field. They're going to be open all day. Like, this is going to be and this is just such an explosion spot for them after coming off that, pathetic offensive performance last week. So really like the Rams here.
So nobody's playing Todd Gurley?
You are.
I'm damn right I'm playing Todd Gurley. Like, it's like running back against the Falcons is still a thing. I know it hasn't quite. Wait, hold on. You can't own me. We've been doing this for years. They have the exact same scheme they've always ran. They've had some matchups against running backs that don't catch the ball.
Todd Gurley.
He's had 16 targets in his last 2 games. There's no Malcolm Brown there. I think he gets the bulk of the work today. The fact that he's going to be under 10% and the fact that he's 6.4K over on DK, like, I don't really understand why more people aren't. Tony, what besides that he sucks, give me an argument against Todd Gurley.
He does suck, so, like, sure, you can play. I don't think he's going to be as low-owned as you think anyways. Like, everyone still thinks he's good. Like, people are going to play him in a big total.
No, they don't think he's good. We're in week 7.
He gets ownership every single week.
And getting it this week. I'll take under 10%.
I think he'll be over 10 for sure, and he's terrible. Like, he's terrible.
I'm with Crane on this one. He won't be owned, and rightfully so.
It's on one leg. The only way he gets there is if he falls into the end zone twice again.
16
You're
targets.
banking on him scoring twice to get you home?
Targets his last 2 games. You don't think he's going to catch some passes?
That's because he can't run. Like, he needs the targets.
I don't care. I don't care how he gets the fantasy points.
You're going to waste a running back spot on Todd Gurley?
Damn right I am.
You need to stick to receivers.
All right. Well, speaking of
Find us a receiver. Make up for this.
I got you a tight end, buddy. We'll talk about that later. Speaking of games where I don't like, guys, Vikings at the Lions, 43.5 point total. Minnesota 2.5 point favorites. I've heard some people talk about this as a sneaky shootout spot. I'm not sure I see it. Hoop, what do you think about this game?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the greatest game. I think I'm a little higher than the game over, a little higher overall on this game than I was earlier in the week. I don't know. I mean, the Lions have kind of opened up the playbook a little bit the last couple of weeks. I mean, their offense was pretty, despite the early on wins, like their offense was still pretty atrocious. But they've opened things up a little bit. So we saw the flea flicker last week to open up the game. A 60-yard catch by Galladay indoors. I think Cook's a guy that people are going to look at and say, "Oh, this matchup sucks. I'm not going to play Cook." I think that's a big mistake. Like he's almost like game script proof. I mean, he's just getting so much work in the passing game. So I really like him. I don't mind like Thielen and Diggs. I don't know. I think it is kind of an interesting game because where the production's coming from. On the Vikings, it's Cook, Thielen, Diggs. On the Lions, it's likely Kerryon Johnson and Galladay. So I don't know. I think it's a little more interesting than I thought earlier in the week.
What about you, Tony? Do you think it's interesting?
Yeah, I definitely don't like it as much as Hoop does. I mean, I think all the usage goes to a couple guys, which is nice, but I don't know. I kind of think this game goes under too, and I like Detroit in the game, so I like Minnesota in different spots. And this isn't a Minnesota spot for me. I can always play Cook, especially on the turf, but man, I think Cook's the only guy I really like in this game all that much.
That's how I feel. I know Kenny Galladay, the models like him a lot, but it's just going to be
he's super cheap, which is nice.
Yeah, that's the argument. And maybe I make some lineups later where I'm like, well, I need a guy at that price point. All right, I'll throw Kenny GQ in there. But
Minnesota's defense, though, I just feel like no one ever goes off again. Their defense is good.
I agree. I'm on Dalvin and probably it. All right, Jacksonville, the Bengals, 43.5 point total. The Jags 4-point favorites on the road against the lowly Bengals. And Chuck Leonard Fournette week. I'm taking my L's, man. You can't spell Leonard without an L, so I'm going to take it. Leonard Fournette's just in a phenomenal spot. Hoop.
Yeah, it's about the best possible spot, and like he's a tier. His price is a tier below the top running back, so it makes it super tough to fade. Getting all the work, getting passing work, gets this elite matchup here against the Bengals. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not much to look into, ownership and strongly consider fading a guy based on that. But there's certainly a route where, Leonard Fournette ends this game with like 20 rushes for 80 yards, 3 catches for 20 yards, and doesn't find the end zone. Like that's in the realm of possibilities. So I think he is fadeable. There are other strong running back plays this week, so I don't think he's like a must play. But man, he's very, very strong play at his price point considering this matchup.
Yeah, and it's just like Tony. When I look at the guy, I think he's just a really good play. Even if he's going to be 40%, I'm probably going to just eat the chalk. What about you?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I hate agreeing with Hoop, but I agree. Like, I think it's almost like an all-in, or I don't know why we always do. I do this too much probably, but whenever it's like the chalk of the slate, like Fournette, I feel like I always just want to go all in or fade. And I don't know if that's right or wrong, but it's just how I handle it. And I still don't really know if I'm going to either way. Like, I think he's a great play, just like Hoop said. I mean, he's a great play for a reason. He's going to be 50%, 60% in the high stakes stuff. I don't know. Like, I can see
50 in high stakes.
Yeah, like I can see that exact line Hoop said almost. Like, I almost think that's what's going to happen. 80 rushing, 20 receiving. He gets like 12 fantasy points. I kind of feel like that's what's going to happen, even though it's not. I mean, the Jacksonville passing game, I don't know. Like, Fournette's a great play. Play him if you want. Fade him if you want. It's all based on ownership here.
Yeah, I mean, DJ Shark is a really great play, a really great pivot off of Fournette. He's expensive enough. He's $6K. Like, nobody's going to really want to pay that price. I see him at like 12% on. I think it's going to be less than that. I think Shark is a really good tournament play. And here's my sneaky guy. Are you guys ready?
Yes.
That is literally going to be point.
As long as it's not a running back.
It's not a running back. It's not Devin Ozigbo. It's not Giovanni Bernard. It's the starting tight end for the Jacksonville Jaguars, Josh Oliver. He's a guy who's an early third-round pick. He's been injured all year. Coming up, he's not expected to play passing downs. They only want to use him as a receiver at 2.8K at a tight end position. That there's some stuff to love, but not a ton, especially in the value range. I don't hate the idea of playing Josh Oliver this week. So at 2.8K, I think that's really interesting. On the Bengals side, I feel like they're only 4-point favorites or 4-point underdogs. I feel like we're supposed to like somebody, but God, Tony, I just don't, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably a little more interested in them than you are. I mean, we got my boy Tate just keeps doing well each week. I was going to say going off, but he isn't going off. But he's been solid. Mixon's too cheap. You're finally off Mixon? You've played him every week.
I didn't play him last week.
So you got off of him. I mean, he's cheap enough where I could definitely play him. I don't know. Bengals, freaking Boyd. I play Boyd every week, and I feel like he sucks every week unless he catches a bomb late like that one week. I don't know. I'm probably a little higher on the Bengals, but they're not one of my top stacks or anything.
Yeah, I don't know. Hoop, I can't play anybody in the Bengals, man. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, Boyd, I think, is still a strong play. Just really, especially on Fanduel, just super, super cheap. I think Mixon's interesting. There's some talk about getting him more involved in the passing game, whatever the hell that means. So I think he's worth a flyer in tournaments. Yeah, I mean, not too much more. I don't know. This is another game where both defenses, I don't think are very good. I guess there's some upside in this game a little bit.
That's what I'm going to run. My Gardner Minshew, Josh Oliver, Tyler Boyd stack.
People love Minshew. We should have talked about that. Like, he's one of the most popular quarterbacks, I think.
He's not. That's like one of those like industry things, and the general public's not going to play.
Why do people like him today, though? I don't even.
It's the Bengals, man. They couldn't stop you.
I don't care. Like, we talk about this every week, though, at quarterback. I just couldn't imagine playing Minshew over a guy like Goff. Like, I just couldn't imagine it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
He could outscore him. Sure, he could outscore him, but, I mean, Goff is never completely busting outside of injury.
All right, let's talk San Francisco at Washington, 39.5-point total. San Francisco on the road, 9.5-point favorites. Going to be rainy. Doesn't seem like it's going to be too prohibitive. We don't like anybody on Washington right here. We'll get Washington out of the way really quick. Anybody? Oh, wait, Tony, I'm sorry. Who do you like on Washington?
You can't make that joke twice.
Oh, I can make it twice, and I just did.
No, I definitely don't like anyone from – I don't like anyone from this game, period.
Yeah, I get it. You know, San Fran spreads it out a lot. I don't hate one guy in San Francisco. Hoop, do you have any interest in these San Francisco 49ers?
I mean, the only guy in this game to really consider, I think, is Kittle, and that would just be like an ownership play off some of the other popular tight ends. But, yeah, I mean, it's not a good situation. I think it's a good game just to kind of cross off the slate.
I genuinely don't hate Dante Pettis today at 4.1K. The snaps have started to go up. The targets, they haven't gone up all that much, but the snaps are up, which is what I'm interested in. And against this Washington team, a guy that can burn them like Dante Pettis, I absolutely have some interest in some tournaments. The chat's talking about Marquise Goodwin. I get it with Goodwin. I'm just taking my stand on Pettis. All right, Chargers at the Titans, another game that we should be able to roll through pretty quickly. 42.5-point total. Tennessee, 2.5-point favorites at home. And Hoop, I'm struggling to like anybody in this game. I do like Derrick Henry for what it's worth. The Chargers defensive line is really banged up. What about you?
It's just Derrick Henry. I mean, and I like him quite a bit, and talked about it on the podcast with Tony. I mean, I think a really good tournament play. I don't have to worry about ownership. More so like a Fanduel play, though, just because there's not much reception upside. Chargers just a disaster. I mean, what the hell are they doing with Melvin Gordon? It's so sad to see teams go down that path. You know, what the Cowboys did, what the Chargers are trying to do. It's like so stupid, and the team suffers and just takes their offense totally out of a flow. So I'm off the Chargers until I see them get away from Gordon, and that's just not going to happen. So it makes it easy. So no thanks. Titans defense, I think, is in play because of the disasters that the Chargers have become.
What about you, Tony?
Yeah, Derrick Henry for me. Nothing else in this game, but I like Tennessee in the game. The Chargers have been one of the worst teams the last month. Basically since Gordon came back, like Hoop said. So I think Henry could get loose if Tennessee dominates this game, like I think they could.
The problem with Henry getting loose is that means it's like a 10-yard carry, but still. Hunter Henry is too cheap, too. He's only 4K, and I don't know.
Yeah, he's definitely in play. Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, let's talk Baltimore at Seattle. 49-point total. Finally, so those were catch-me-up games, guys. That was nice. All right, Baltimore at Seattle. 49-point total. Seattle 3-point favorites at home. And I think, Hoop, that we talk about eating chalk. I think one of the guys whose chalk I am very willing to eat is Chris Carson. I love this spot for him. What about you on Chris Carson?
Yeah, I liked him until I just saw this forecast and there's rain, and I remember what happened last time I played him at home in the rain.
Oh no, Chris.
Is it supposed to rain? It looks like 80% chance of precipitation all game. That is scary. If you play, what was that, like week 3, I think, when he couldn't stay on his feet, just fell 5 times.
80% chance of precipitation on the Hoop workbench later today.
Well, yeah, for sure. But man, that was painful to see. I'm actually genuinely concerned now with Carson now that I saw this forecast. I gotta look a little more, but I mean, assuming that's not an issue, yeah, I definitely like him. Good game, like we talked about. I mean, the total's up here, and it's gonna overall game stack wise going to be lower than those other games. You get Lockett, you can play Metcalf. I think is a really strong tournament play. The problem is, like, on the Ravens side, it's like there's really only 2 guys you can play. It's like just
that's great.
Jackson and Andrews. Yeah, I mean, I guess it makes it easy. I guess if you're going to stack, but I couldn't play anyone outside of Jackson and Mark Andrews.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson's quickly becoming, like, the more I'm looking into the slate, I like him a lot. Every week, man, I like Lamar Jackson. What about you, Tony?
Yeah, these running quarterbacks, like, you have to like them. That's part of my issue with, like, Minshew, too, is you can take guys like Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. These guys' floor is just so massive outside of injury that at quarterback, if you told me I could have even, like, 20 to 25 every week, I don't need the upside of 40. I'll just lock in my 20 to 25 and try to win at other places. And just avoid the total dud you get from some guys, some injury or the random game where they don't throw a touchdown. But, yeah, I mean, both quarterbacks here, Carson, Metcalf even maybe. I think this game is definitely a sneaky shootout.
Yeah, I really do agree with you guys. I like the over in this game. I like points. I like I like Lamar. I even like Russ. I'm surprised we got Russ at 10% owned. I think he might be a little bit lower than that. All right, Saints at Bears, another catch-me-up game. 37.5-point total. The Bears 4-point favorite. And Hoop, you know what I'm about to do?
What?
I'm about to make the joke the 3rd time. Tony, who you stacking up in this game?
Just every time there's a low total.
Every time, yep.
Yeah, I mean, this game, if there's a game I think goes under for sure, it's this game. I mean, I guess, like, Latavius Murray could be a play just because of his price, but I can't do it.
I wish Latavius was. He's 5.1. Like, I thought he was going to be under 4K, and then I saw 5.1, and, like, I know Akeem Hicks is out for the Bears, which does matter, but holy cow, man!
Just looking at just projections, I know I use projections less than probably anybody. His projection sticks out though. Like, his projection's pretty high, which is a little surprising to me. So when I see a projection that looks way higher, I at least take note of it. I think I'll play some Latavius just because he's projected pretty good.
All right, I'm not going to have any Latavius. Hoop, what about you? Are you on Team Latavius?
I think it's a guy to consider on FanDuel. I couldn't imagine paying that price tag on DraftKings and Fantasydraft. Like, I'm not doing it. But there is honestly 20 touch upside here for him. I mean, if the game script goes in his favor, I mean, if they have any sort of lead, like, he's going to get a lot of work here. And so, there is upside. The matchup suck. I mean, if he's in a different matchup, he's playing the Cardinals this week. He's probably the highest owned guy on the slate, not even close, like, just lock button. The fact that he's playing the Bears makes it much more risky. But, I mean, they haven't been great against the run, so I think he's a fine play on FanDuel, not touching him on these other sites.
Yeah, it's crazy to me how high he's projected. It must be a sneaky good matchup then, right?
I mean, their best run stopper is out. Yeah. I will say
that. Is that why the projections give him such a high number?
Right, because he's about to get 20 touches. That's why. Which,
like, he's the second value running back on, like, all these behind Fournette. Like, that's crazy to me.
Yeah. What about the receivers here? Like, I know that nobody's talking about Michael Thomas, but the dude's an absolute stud, is going to be almost unowned, and there's no Alvin Kamara. Like, the passes have to go somewhere, I guess is what I'm saying. And, like, I think Michael Thomas is a little bit interesting.
And I agree with you. There's, if it's a competitive game and they're behind a little bit and they're forced to pass, like you have to imagine they're going to pepper Michael Thomas. But on the other hand, you have to imagine that the Bears are going to plan for that as well. So
what that means?
Who?
Ted Ginn, baby.
Ooh, Ted Ginn season.
Ted Ginn's SCN, maybe. Maybe. Yeah. I have 3.6. I'm actually going to sprinkle him in some, but I'm not too excited about it.
Yeah, 3.6. And I guess he's always a guy that could.
Can Teddy even throw it far enough to get him the ball?
It's just get a couple screens, take it to the house. That's what we're going to do. All right, the Bears side. David Montgomery is somebody that I'm just not in love with. Same for Allen Brown. I don't like this Bears side at all. Tony, do you?
No, yeah. I mean, the only one I would even think about playing is Allen Robinson. And I don't know. Like, I didn't think I was going to play anyone in this game. Now I kind of like Latavius and Michael Thomas, which sucks because I like the Bears in the game. So they're going to get all the usage, right? Thomas and Latavius. I mean, I don't know. I think I like Latavius more than I wanted to.
Yeah, I don't like Latavius. Hoop, do you like anybody on the Bears?
No, I mean, Bears are just, even in good spots, just a tough team to project. I mean, I don't know what they're doing with David Montgomery. It goes back and forth. And I guess if I was going to play anyone, it would be Robinson, and that's it. But Trubisky just freaking sucks. So
CSU is in the chat talking about Allen Robinson. So take that for what it's worth. All right.
Guys like that just get so much usage that, I mean, he's going to get a ton of ball. He's always got to at least be in the conversation.
Oh, the chat. Eventually, Cohen will go off. No, he won't. Like, I love the people that are just like, I'm just playing Tariq Cohen every week till he does well. Like,
and then they take the victory lap.
Yeah, exactly.
9 weeks in.
I only spent $27,000 on Tariq Cohen lineups, and he finally got there. Give me that min cash. All right. Eagles at the Cowboys. It's a Sunday night game, 49.5 point total. Dallas 2.5 point favorites. And Tony, I know you and I talked about this on Friday as well, but we're both big fans of Dak Prescott and Amari Cooper tonight.
Yeah, assuming everything's good with Cooper, which it looks like he's in good shape. I mean, yeah, I think there's a lot of points in this game. If Dallas isn't stupid and just tries to run Zeke up the middle.
Have you not watched the last 3 weeks?
I know, and they probably are going to, and it's going to just be tilting tonight because obviously by this point everyone knows Philly wants to stop the run, Dallas wants to run. So something's got to give, and I think Philly's D is going to be able to hold up. So if they run up the middle, it's going to be very tilting because this game should turn into a shootout if they just pass.
Yeah,
they can dump some screens off to Zeke, but don't just run them up the middle, please.
Yeah, like I know CSU is in the chat, and I got them all limp with the Ted Ginn comment, so I'm just going to say, love me some Amari tonight on Fantasydraft. And he's not going to be –
that'll make things rise rather quickly.
Gallup would make him rise too. Like, this is his team. He loves Mr. Gallup.
And I love Dak tonight. Like, in tournaments, I love Dak. Like, I think he's really, really sneaky. Are you on Amari with us?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just you have to imagine some of these dumb teams get smarter. Like the Cowboys, they've been the dumbest team in football the last 3 weeks. I mean, what they've done with it's just so hard to watch. It's like just so obvious, and you just have to imagine like it's just so easy with the Eagles. They're so good against the run, so bad against the pass. Like, just be like semi-smart and, you can get there. But, yeah, I'm with you on Cooper. I mean, it's a phenomenal spot, and he's looked really good.
Yeah, and on the Eagles side, Miles Sanders has looked really good. I'm not sure I can play him here. Alshon, he's cheap enough to be interesting. Tony, who do you like on Philly?
So always the passing game for me with Philly just because I think they're going to sling it. Like I said, if this game goes how I want it to, I think both teams are going to throw a ton. I could see this game really shooting out, which gives it value on a site like Fantasydraft, where these games are always lower owned at night. People that do play it will just play Zeke just because they want to get that big-time running back in there, the big-time projection type thing. I'm good with the passing game. Ertz, Alshon, even like Aguilar is a total dart. Like, I'm good with the Philly passing game and Dallas passing game. Game stack on like Fantasydraft and Yahoo where the night game goes a little lower owned than it should be.
Hoop, do you like anybody specifically on Philly?
Yeah, Ertz, Alshon. I mean, I agree. I mean, you just can't play the running backs. Just so hard to project what these guys are going to do.
And if they do good, you're screwed anyway.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Yeah, so you just forget about it. I mean, that's what I'd probably be looking to do. Forget about the running game here and just hope it turns into a shootout, which it should.
All right, guys, because us on the Morning Wood are just amazing. We're spectacular. We got times for QQs. They might have cut us off twice, but baby, we're back and we got time for
even though it's not on the slate. Can we talk about the Jets?
Sure. Yeah. Go ahead. Talk about. I mean,
Jets I really like the Jets.
Literally nobody wants to talk about the Jets except for you. But go.
Man, no, I know. I can tell you one thing. The other guy in here wants to talk about the Jets too.
It's like my favorite. I think they went outright. I think they beat
I think this is the Jets are going to perform here. The Jets are going to perform. I like the Jets here. That's all I wanted to say.
Hoops never liked a team like this in his life.
Yeah, you know something's up. I mean, this is a spot where Hoops on the Patriots like 99% of the time, but on the Jets here. On the Jets.
All right. Because I don't understand why, but hey, y'all do you, man. I'm never gonna pretend like my Wood brethren aren't Jets Super Bowl plus 35,000. Oh boy, you guys,
I don't like them quite that much. I like them Monday night.
You guys have lost it in the chat. All right, here's some questions. Somebody has a feeling on Duke Williams. Tony, you were the resident Duke Williams fan. Do you have a feeling on the Duke?
Duke what? That's Duke Johnson. I don't know. Duke Williams is another dude.
Yeah, sorry. Anyways, I'm not playing any of the Dukes. Sorry, my bad.
Nobody named Duke is on my list today.
Nope. All right, let's see. Any interest in Tevin Coleman? We sort of skipped over him when we were talking about San Francisco, but Hoop, I just don't like messing with his running backs.
Yeah, and the 49ers it's a tough team for DFS outside of Kittle. I mean, I'd definitely be looking to go elsewhere. I mean, it's at best a 50-50 type split. I mean, it has looked like he's going to get most of the goal line work, so yeah, maybe, but I'm more interested in, 15 other running backs.
Say Duke Williams on Buffalo. I don't care. I don't know Duke Williams. I ain't playing today. Tony, Cooks or Fuller today?
Oh, Cooks. Anyone in that Rams game over anything else if I have to choose.
Hoop, here's a cash question. Hilton, Woods, or Galladay in cash?
Hilton.
Yeah, got to play like if you're playing. I'm fading him in tournaments. If you're playing cash games, you got to be playing T.Y. Hilton.
Yeah.
All right, tournaments. Tony, Marlon Mack or Josh Jacobs?
I said Jacobs is like my favorite tournament play, running back wise of the day. So Jacobs.
All right. Any interest in Miles Boykin as a tournament dart?
Definitely not for me.
No.
Just like I said, it's just like Andrews. Andrews is the only pass catcher I think you can honestly consider for the Ravens. I mean, it's just – and there's cheap enough guys where you don't even have to look to Boykin.
All right. Choose two of these guys, Tony. Gurley, Fournette, and Carson. I know you're hating on Gurley.
I have to choose between Gurley and the two best running back plays on the slate. I think I'll go with the other two.
All right. Another cash game question. Hoop, John Brown and Devontae Freeman or Kenny Galladay and Latavius Murray?
First one.
All right. CSU Rams wants to know, who's the Big T windmill play of the day?
The windmill, my favorite play overall, probably Julio. I like Julio a ton today. I was going to say Cooper Kupp because I think Cooper Kupp's the easiest. But give me Julio. I think Julio goes nuclear today.
So I don't know if this guy's trolling or not, but he has asked his question 3 times and it's a season-long question. Mark Ingram or Josh Jacobs, season-long, 0.5 PPR. Hoop, go.
Jacobs. But I like both. But yeah,
Jacobs. It's Jacobs.
I'd always go with the running back.
All right, from CSU Ram, Dalvin Cook, Giants D, or Derrick Henry and the Bills D?
I like number 2.
I like Henry and the Bills D for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you there as well. All right, we got to get off here. We got to make way for Dean and some poor guy that has to work with Dean. It's been a lot of fun. Guys, check out Fantasy Draft. Rake-free DFS over there going on today. So make sure you check out their sponsor site. We love Fantasy Draft, and you guys definitely should too. Get over there on Fantasy Draft. Free premium today. You can check out Crunch Time for free, and you got to do that because you guys don't understand just how valuable premium can be. So make sure you give that a look. If you're not a premium member, what are you waiting for? And if you want to find out what you're missing, watch Crunch Time today. But we got to get out of here. For Hoop, for Tony, I'm Eric. We'll catch y'all later. Peace.
Fantasy Bar, 6 of my favorite plays for Yahoo for week 7. We're going to attack the mid-range, give you a quarterback receiver pairing I'm eyeing up this week, a Sunday night hammer play. We're going to find you some value at the running back position, hitting the mid-range, and of course, my favorite play on the week. Who are we looking at this week? Belly up to the Fantasy Bar and find out. Welcome in, guys. Week 7 edition here. Beers Daily Fantasy 6-pack talking Yahoo once again. 6 of my favorite plays for you over there on the week. Before we get into week 7, let's take a look back at week 6 and see how things went. And we're not going to sugarcoat it. Not the best week here. Definitely had some hits, but some misses as well. Let's go through everything real quick here. Travis Kelce, still waiting on that big game from Travis Kelce. Love that spot. We got the shootout we wanted. It went over the total. Kelce just was not as involved as we were hoping. I thought Tyreek Hill would be back, open things up for Kelce. 7.8. Definitely disappointing outing there, spending that kind of money on Travis Kelce. DeAndre Hopkins in that same game was okay. I'm going to classify him as just okay. 12 fantasy points. Definitely not enough. We were hoping for an outburst there from him. Did not get that either. So both sides of that game disappointing. Kenyon Drake tried to go cheap at the running back position. 10 fantasy points. Didn't kill us. But Mark Walton getting involved there. Hard to trust anyone on this Dolphins team. Robbie Anderson, a hit for us. Had a long touchdown. Figured with Sam Darnold back, he'd be more involved. And we certainly got that. So hit big with Robbie Anderson. Damian Williams, tough to predict that Kansas City backfield right now. 8.5. Did find the end zone, but was really phased out here. Was kind of surprised. We'll see what they do going forward, but a 3-headed monster there. Going to make it tough to roster many running backs from the Kansas City Chiefs. And our beast of the week, Kyler Murray, definitely paid off big time for us. His best game as a pro, continues to get better. 28.8 here on Yahoo. Big hit here for Kyler Murray in that big win for them last week. All right, let's get into week 7 picks here. And an interesting slate, a lot of ways you can go. Again, we're going to attack the mid-range here, try to make life easy on you. So let's start at the wide receiver position with Calvin Ridley of the Falcons. So a touchdown maker, we know that's what he is. Last year that was the story. Heard a lot of people talking before the season. The touchdowns are going to come down. They have not. 4 touchdowns so far in 6 games. And Jalen Ramsey sounds like he's going to play. We don't have confirmation. Sean McVay was hopeful he can play. The back injury mysteriously has gone away. Now that he's gone away from Jacksonville, but I think if he does play, he'll spend the majority of his time on Julio Jones. That's going to be good news here for Calvin Ridley. Big total in this game, 54.5. We know this can definitely be a shootout. 2 very good offenses, 2 very bad defenses, especially in the secondary. Even with the addition of Jalen Ramsey, the rest of that secondary for the Rams leaves a lot to be desired. Calvin Ridley, good value here in big play upside, tournament winning upside at $21. All right, let's go to the other side of the game. This one going to be controversial, but I'm going running back Darrell Henderson, $13. So this one hinges on a lot. I get that. Todd Gurley, Malcolm Brown, both questionable for Sunday. If one of these guys is out, I still feel really good about Henderson having a big enough role to pay off this price tag. If both these guys are out, Henderson a lock and load in all formats. So if we need to make any adjustments, we will do that here in the comments section on RotoGrinders and on YouTube, as well as on Twitter. So you will be notified. We'll get a replacement in there. But I think Henderson is going to find his way in the field here with one of these guys at least sitting out, and definitely passed the eye test last week. If you watch that game, he looked like the better running back between him and Malcolm Brown. Has that shot out of a cannon feel, that big play feel that we saw in college, a guy that can take it to the house at any time. And the Falcons defense has been a target for us all season long. Running backs, 19th most fantasy points allowed to the position. Darrell Henderson, great value here. Hopefully all systems go here against the Falcons at $13. All right, moving on to the tight end position. Our next pick, Mark Andrews, $22. So Andrew's a target in many different formats here this week. In cash games, you feel really good about those targets. 7 or more targets in each and every game this season. And in tournaments, we've seen many 20-point games out of this guy. In Seattle, not been very good against tight ends this season. 5th most fantasy points allowed to that position. We got a big total in this game. I love the stacking potential here. Baltimore, very narrow set of options that we can go with. Seattle, a lot of different ways that you can run it back here. But Mark Andrews, whether it's cash games, whether it's tournaments, in a great spot. Get him in those lineups here on Yahoo at $22. All right, let's go to the running back position once again. This one going to be controversial as well. It's been ugly so far this season, but can't ignore this price tag on Joe Mixon, just $14. And I get it. I understand a lot of people have written Joe Mixon off, going to the Godfather. Just when I thought I was out, he pulled me back in, and that's where we're at here with Joe Mixon. I thought I was out as well, but I love the talent here. I love the price tag, and the matchup doesn't get any better here. Jacksonville dead last in the NFL in DVOA against the run this season. So we get a buy low here. We get a good matchup, and the buy low is not only this season, the lowest price he's ever been on Yahoo Daily Fantasy. I'm going to roll the dice here with Joe Mixon. This play is not for everybody. It's not for you. Hey, no issues. My opinion here, great buy low, solid matchup. Even behind that Swiss cheese offensive line, I think Mixon gets involved here and easily pays off this $14 price point. All right, let's go to Sunday Night Football. Interesting game between the Cowboys and the Eagles. We're going to go wide receiver, Michael Gallup, $26. So Amari Cooper, questionable. Randall Cobb, questionable. We'll see if either plays here. It really doesn't matter. If both guys are in there, I still like Michael Gallup in this matchup against Philadelphia. We picked on them week in, week out. We hit big with Stephon Diggs last week over on Fanduel Draftkings 6-pack against the secondary. And I think Gallup could be that guy here this week against the secondary. Most fantasy points allowed to the position. Guess who? Yes, Philadelphia here. Dallas at home seems to be a much better offense, and Gallup, when healthy, has been an absolute beast here. I think he does it once again. Again, Sunday Night Hammer, stack that game if you want, but Michael Gallup going to be the one guy I'm targeting out of that game in all formats here on Yahoo at $26. All right, it's time to take a look at my favorite play on the week, guys. But before we do that, a couple things I need. First of all, subscribe to the channel. Then you'll know when all the videos are coming out. Makes life super easy on you, and that's our goal here. Make life easy on you. 2, hit that thumbs up button. That's the tip jar here in this bar. Lets me know you're having a good time. Lets me know you're enjoying the videos. And guys, it helps us out tremendously. So I greatly appreciate you hitting that thumbs up. And as a thank you for watching, for hitting those thumbs up, we're going to run it back again with our Beast Contest. Closest guess to fantasy points to my Beast of the Week is going to win either a free week of RotoGrinders Premium, gives you access to everything we have here covering the NFL, or a free RotoGrinders t-shirt, the most soft, comfortable t-shirt there is out there. Not being a company man there, that t-shirt is awesome. So the premium, the t-shirt, absolutely free. And again, a thank you to you guys. Now, who are we guessing those fantasy points on? Let's take a look at my favorite play for Week 7 on Yahoo. You know him as the Beast of the Week. All right, Beast time. We're going to go to the quarterback position, and we're going to roll with Matt Ryan, $32, this week's Beast of the Week. So Ryan been incredible this season. 300 yards passing in his sleep. Has done it every single game this season. Multiple touchdown passes pretty much in his sleep as well. In 5 of 6 games. You have a lot of different ways you can pair him. You want to go Julio Jones? You can do that. We gave you Calvin Ridley. So there's your 2-man pairing. Austin Hooper has been outstanding. And the Rams defense, we mentioned it, not been very good. Ramsey helps for sure, but this team has not been good against the pass. 20th in DVOA. Massive total in this game. In the dome, both teams are going to score some points, and Matt Ryan's going to easily cruise over 300 yards, calling for 4 touchdown passes in this game. According to the Beer Gut, I think he has a big game here. But Matt Ryan, easily my favorite play on Yahoo and this week's Beast of the Week. All right, guys, that wraps up for Week 7 here in the Fantasy Bar on Yahoo. Any comments, questions, feedback, guys, whatever you want to talk about, that comment section is for you. Remember, these are guys that I like. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to plug them into your lineup. Make sure they make sense with your lineups. Make sure you're correlating those lineups. But most importantly, guys, thank you for stopping by and checking out the video. For RotoGrinders.com, I am Bear saying salut. Best of luck. Fanduel Draftkings video is out. If you're looking for that, go check that out. Thank you, guys, and good luck.
Hey, thanks for checking out our videos. If you want more expert advice on DraftKings, FanDuel, or any other daily fantasy sports, make sure you check out the current videos playlist.
What is going on? RotoGrinders Dean here. It's Dean 7904. If you want to get all technical on me, it is 10:10 on the East Coast, 7:10 on the West Coast, 9:10 Tennessee time. Which, of course, means time of the flagship show here at RotoGrinders. It's called Grinderslive. It's sponsored by Yahoo. And joining me today, batting first, leading off, it's one Grant Neefer, who's here for us. What's up, Grant?
I'm still just chuckling at the fact that Devin just hopes we discontinue our conversation before the show actually starts and nothing gets let out in the first few seconds.
Well, he told me pre-show we were talking. He records everything now, so the blooper reel is going to be a lot of fun for sure. They'll have a good time editing.
It's very wholesome talk. It always is.
What's up, Tuttle? How's Sunday treating you?
It's going all right. You know, nice little Sunday. Watched had a movie night last night with the boys, and they all think they're Spider-Man now, so pretty eventful.
Into the universe, or the cartoon one, or you watched the one that just came out when they're in Europe?
Yeah, the one where they're in Europe, Far From Home.
Yeah, it was good. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
It was pretty good. I mean, they for them it was great. They just are literally just jumping everywhere, pretending to be Spider-Man now. But
that's gonna cause some injuries. Trust me, I've been there before in my late 20s.
The most important question though, Tuttle, is you didn't go to Redbox. You didn't put pants on and go to Redbox have to return a DVD this morning.
Oh, it's even worse.
Oh no! What did you do?
It's even worse.
You bought the DVD?
I can't say it. You guys will make fun of me.
What do you mean?
Bought the DVD.
You bought it? Who buys DVDs?
No, my wife is an avid user of the library.
Oh, no, that's good.
They have
it's free.
DVDs at the library?
Yeah. So
she puts pants on, but it's free.
Yeah. This was actually a hotly contested point earlier this year, because at one point she had 80 things checked out from the library. And people are like, that's crazy, you can't do that. But the librarians actually love it.
In your house?
Are they all books?
It's like 80.
Movies
it's like 75 of them are books, maybe like 5 of them are movies.
Who's reading that many books at once? You would
be surprised. You'd be surprised. Our kids actually
I am in fact surprised.
Yeah, our kids do cycle through them actually fairly well.
Your kids read? That is even more surprising. You know, there's this thing called an iPad, much better than a book.
Have they heard of YouTube? Are they not aware?
Yeah, we try to not let them have too much screen time. We can't let them watching, this show and the Swellcast on YouTube. We gotta have them reading.
Why is Dad drinking so many hard seltzers?
Oh man. In a former life, I used to hit the library a lot when I used to teach. Teaching in air quotes. I was like,
I imagine you being the guy in the library on the computer out in the corner where we don't know exactly what you're looking
exactly at. What's on the computer screen.
I am not that guy. I have self-control, Grant. We live in a society.
Society? There's some weird people in the society, Dean.
Let's segue it up and let's talk about today's slate, week 7, of course.
That's the segue? That's the segue?
Well, it wasn't seamless, but it was a jump.
It wasn't going anywhere, so he just had to get to the point.
We do want to give the shout-outs, Grant, of course, those people out there that are rocking the RG badge these days. We have to incentivize them to do so. If you finish in the top 10 of certain contests around the industry, you will win yourself 1 month of free RG Premium. Of course, everybody is getting the RG Premium later on today as far as the video, so I'll get Brit, Tip and Pick, STL Cards, JSU. Just stay on this channel, stay locked all the way up the lock, and get your answers, your questions answered as well from JSU. If you guys don't get them answered in this show, of course, we're wasting too much time already. Do want to give a shout out to those that have already signed up. We have ACS204, Daddy Cool Cowboy Brown, which is an amazing name. What's up, Daddy? Slay, Coop Gal, D Wood 123, J Show, Jim Beam 1, Josh 1231, and of course, Bubba Gump 2057. Give me the screenshot here, Tuttle, as far as week 7. What are we looking at? It's kind of progressed as the week has progressed with a lot of injuries kind of in limbo. And it seems like, well, is there any important injuries that you're monitoring? Most guys we kind of sort of know based upon reports. Of course, your Packers. I don't know, are you playing receiver today? Who's playing for receiver for the Packers today? Does it matter? What are we looking at today as far as the overall screenshot of week 7?
Yeah, I think that's the one we're still waiting on the most, is trying to figure out who's going to suit up for Green Bay at receiver. I don't think there's a huge need to go Alan Lazard either way, depending on who's suiting up. But I think he was going to be a pretty popular value play. If one of MVS and Geronimo sit alongside of Devontae, who's already been ruled out. So I think he's a fine play. I just don't also think you absolutely need him on this slate, even if one of the two sit out. So yeah, I think injury wise, that's mostly what we're waiting for still. I think we have clearance everywhere else. I guess technically we don't know that the Evan Ingram and Saquon, we don't technically know that they're going to play.
Yeah.
Because of Shermer kind of being coy about everything. I assume they're going to play, but I think Green Bay is the only situation still up in the air.
Yeah, I mean, David Johnson, they said on Friday, the coach basically said if it was today, he wouldn't play, which was sounded kind of weird. I'm not sure if that's gamesmanship. Coaches have lied to us before. Last week, I felt with the whole the Kittle swerve. Never again. Never trust San Francisco. Or was that Rappaport one more time? Who was that? Was that?
Yeah, I had to ask. I don't know who it was.
Oh man, that was so tilting for sure. And I'm not sure if you heard this, but Lazard, Rodgers handpicked him. So does that change things for you? And that's the narrative. And of course, he scored a touchdown in an island game. That's why people are excited about Lazard, and also because there's no other cheap receivers. It's a weird week where there's no cheap receivers.
It's kind of pathetic that he had to hand choose him over Darius Shepard, who was the one getting I actually had Shepard at 200 in some long shot showdown lineups.
Oh boy!
So I was tilting a little bit when he dropped that one by the goal line, but he's Shepard's not good. So yeah, Lazard's actually fairly talented. Was a good player at Iowa State as well. So much more talented. It's kind of, you wonder why he wasn't getting snaps above Darius Shepard, I guess.
You watched them. Oh, that's the Big Ten, I guess, against Wisconsin, I suppose, right? Is that too soon to mention Wisconsin, or we're okay? We're good?
Oh, that was brutal.
Sorry.
Brutal.
You hit up those Trulies, I imagine. You were kind of thirsty last night. Grant, jump in here. What's your screenshot today?
Everyone's going to go high-low, and I don't think that's the right call. I mean, we have Lazard as Lazard as the major chalk. We got Murray as major chalk. So yeah, this is an interesting week because there are so many guys in the mid tier that are better plays than people really realize. And a lot of people are just going to go for the viewed sure things. And I don't think that's the right way to go. I mean, honestly, I think most of the best plays of the week are in between 5 and 6K. And I get that some of them are going to be fairly chalky. I mean, T.Y. Hilton for one, but
yeah,
just looking at each spot, there's some very good pivots in every single one of them. T.Y. Hilton and Cook, there's easy pivots over to a bunch of different guys. So it's a week where you can eat the chalk if you want, but I think you're better off going just slightly off the chalk, and it could be drastically more advantageous.
Yeah, by the way, I do have we're going to do a little screenshotting as the show progresses. And you talk about the chalk. We have Jamino and his ownership projections along with everything else, all the good stuff here as far as lineup HQ. And you mentioned Jamino's kind of waiting in the wings, and he probably wants to hear some information as far as the Packers, and he's ready to shift as well. But as of right now, he's got Lazard at 19%. At least that's on DK. I'll be jumping back and forth as far as DK and as far as Yahoo as well. And there was somebody else you called somebody kind of sort of chalky. I think Hilton's a DK chalky guy, 32%, but he won't be chalky on Yahoo again. Depends on where you're shopping. Should also mention on Yahoo as well. Let's go ahead and take a look because there is some potential overlay lurking over there. Yeah, the baller, 250K baller, $10 to jump in there, 25K to first, flat payout. As far as the management fee, just over 10%, which is really nice. We're seeing over 30% overlay as of right now. I'm in for 10. Hopefully I'll hit some more after the show. You can get up to 150 if you want to do so. Yeah, so again, just note our screenshot as far as the lineup HQ. That'll be there as well. If you guys are just listening, feel free to take a look at the page as well. We do talk about quarterbacks first, Grant. Open up quarterbacks because, the top feels pretty clear, I suppose. What say you?
I mean, I think most people are going to go to that game with a very high total in the Rams and the Falcons. I mean, Matt Ryan and Jared Goff are guys that can put up boatloads of yards in any single game. Matt Ryan seems to do it each and every single week. He hits 300 yards with more consistency than any other quarterback outside of Mahomes. As in that single game this season without it, you get that nice little bonus there on top of it and on a lot of sites. And now he's going up against the Rams. It's interesting, though, with the Rams. Ramsey's coming in, and he's known this offense or defense for 3-4 days, likely just to shadow Julio, which when you're just having a guy shadow, you have to kind of remake the defense and the play calls around that. And I mean, Ryan still could end up with a good game, but I don't know if it's going to affect him too much in a good or bad way. And we're getting massive chalk on him, a guy that doesn't run, a guy that very easily could end up getting his touchdown snake by Freeman. This isn't the most positive game script. I think that Atlanta wins this one outright and could easily be up big early on. The line's only set it hasn't moved all the way down to 2 yet. I'm not really sure, but that game, like, it's more of a game stack scenario to me than it really is just go straight up to Matt Ryan or Jared Goff. Then you got the rushing guys at the top who are in decent total games: Baltimore, Seattle, Houston, Indy. Like, go for those guys. You got Minshew there. You got Murray going up against the Giants. Honestly, I don't think there's a clear-cut guy that you need to go with in cash or in GPPs this week. And I mean, a guy that I'm very highly on, or two guys I'm very highly on, are Minshew and Stafford. We already talked about this earlier on the week in our Monday night podcast. And Minshew going up against Cincinnati, who's been terrible versus Russian quarterbacks so far this year. Granted, they've seen some very good ones, but they gave up like career games to these Russian quarterbacks. Everyone's going to be all over Fournette. Are we going to be surprised if Minshew's the guy that ends up running it in because Cincinnati's probably going to focus a bit more on Fournette in this game here, and it could very easily leave other guys open and Minshew to rush quite a bit. So I really like Minshew, and I really like Stafford going up against Minnesota. No one's going to play him. He's got decent wide receivers. Yes, they tend to run the ball a lot, and Minnesota does have a good defense, but Stafford could easily put up over a 300-yard game. So those are the guys that are kind of the off-the-board guys that I really like today.
Who do you pair Minshew with, Westbrook or Shark?
Shark.
All right. Also worth noting, I went ahead and dropped the link there in chat for you guys. The weather that's lurking out there. There is expected rain in 3 games. Giants, Washington, Seattle. Of course, 4 of the running quarterbacks out there: Baltimore, Seattle, Arizona, and New York. I guess we'll throw Jones into the conversation. Sure, why not? And that's kind of where I'm at too, Tuttle. Like, I just feel like I want the running quarterbacks. I want the outs, the legs, and Ryan's kind of got to throw for 300 yards and get 3 or 4 touchdowns, which certainly he's capable of. We see him do it. I think 300 yards he's cracked all season long. Hasn't always been pretty, but like his defense is so inept, they kind of force him to throw for 300, 400 yards or so. And then on the other side, the Rams, as far as their offense, it's sort of up and down. In Goff, we're not sure if he's good, but like Atlanta just does not put a lot of pressure on the quarterback. You got all the quarterbacks in the dome as well. Where are we at? Like, a catch game quarterback on DK? I think it's Ryan, which is like, I mean, he's cheaper and he's safer, which I hate the word safe, but what are we doing as far as cash quarterback and kind of branch out as far as your tournament plays?
I think all I've learned is that Josh Allen has gone too mainstream for Grant now.
Yeah, what happened? That used to be Grant's boy. It's like when your favorite band.
Josh Allen's always my boy. Of course I'm playing Josh Allen.
Does that just goes without saying every week?
You were keeping him to yourself? You were hoarding all the Josh Allen? I don't think you mentioned that.
Anyone who doesn't think that the best quarterback in the league going up against the worst defense in the league is a good play, I don't understand him.
Yeah, that's a tricky game as always, because it's like the push-pull of, right, Tuttle, it's like, they're possibly going to be up to 21-3 or so in the third quarter or so. They just grind it out with Gore and Singletary, and how do they get those 3 touchdowns anyway? I never really know. You want the shootouts, obviously. You want your quarterback to be playing, throwing the ball for 4 quarters. Of course, he's got legs as well. I never really know what to do with those games. And, of course, it's football, so who really can predict it? It's certainly possible, in theory, that the Dolphins are, like, in this game in the fourth quarter and they're still passing it. Well, what's your take? You brought up Allen, so feel free to elaborate.
Yeah, I think because of the legs, I think you can involve him in the mix with any format, really. I think he could be considered a cash game option. Tournaments as well. Tournaments, nice thing with him, you do have a couple of people you can pair him with John Brown, Cole Beasley, if you want to go the unattractive route. But you also can just play him naked, which is fine. But yeah, I mean, you have to worry about blowout. But I typically, with game stacks, that's more of a concern for me than anything else, because you want to be able to run it back with like a Devontae Parker, Preston Williams, which isn't all that attractive. But in terms of, cash game floor, I still think he has it. You basically are just hoping that he's the guy that, puts up or is attributing to the first 4 touchdowns that they score. And, if that happens, then you're fine.
Grant's answering questions in chat, by the way. He was the last Miami Dolphins stan, and last week he probably got some ads on the old Twitter machine. He's saying no Dolphins. So when Grant taps out, we all got to tap out, right? Like,
wouldn't this week be the week to tap in, though? I mean, obviously a tougher matchup, but at least we have somebody that can
tougher
throw the
matchup,
ball.
an incredibly tough matchup.
But at least we have somebody that can throw the ball, right? Like, we have a guy that's going to take shots at least. That's better than Josh Rosen under center, just dinking and dunking. At least we'll have a shot with Fitzpatrick under center.
It just means to play Buffalo defense, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Buffalo defense is obviously really good.
Yeah, you play the defense every single week versus Miami. DFS is super easy when it comes to defense now.
I actually have a Grant-esque level tournament take. He kind of touched on it already. Well, touched on the game.
Stafford?
I did write up Minshew as my quarterback this week in the core leverage article. But how about Andy Dalton on the other side?
Oh boy,
it's ugly. It's ugly, but it's a very easy game stack to make. It's a way to kind of create a lineup that's going to have unique construction around Fournette. So we talk about just fading guys that are going to be heavily owned, but at least also if you play Fournette in a lineup construction that has Dalton, Tyler Boyd, and Auden Tate, the targets are concentrated in that offense, which is nice.
What about Mixon?
It's ugly.
Is he in the mix there? Not the pun. It just sort of worked out that way. He's cheap.
Yeah, he's cheap. He's actually I've seen him popping on some projection systems. I'm not a huge overall fan. I think I would just like to get just real ugly and go passing game. And I do think Tyler Boyd is actually
set at 3.5.
Yeah.
So I'd assume it's going to be close.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it might be 17
it's gone
to 14.
all the way up to 4.5. All right.
Yeah. It just might be an ugly game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it reflects or hurts Mixon's value really much either way. Obviously, if they get really far behind, then the Bernard's can jump in with those passing down rolls. But yeah, I've seen projection systems liking Mixon for his price tag. I don't think I can get on board with that though.
Tuttle, as far as the other quarterbacks, again, depending on where you're looking, the ownership percentage is never really going to be too high. We're seeing Ryan around 15%. Goff 13, L-Jax at 12, Allen at 11, Wilson at 10. I will say Yahoo specific, Murray seems they bumped him up, but he's still a little bit too cheap there for my liking. I think he's $30 over there. Ryan at 32 is pretty reasonable. Daniel Jones at 26.
You do realize that Allen's the same price as Murray.
Yeah. I think I like Murray more than Allen. Is that the wrong take, Grant?
Yeah, that's a bad take.
Yeah, that's a horrible take.
I don't know.
Dean, I've heard you say some pretty dumb things.
Sure, I've been on for a while.
That was the end of my thought. I was just saying I've heard you say some really dumb things.
I just want Dean to tout Tannehill now. That's all I want.
Come
on. Oh, gosh.
I can yell out my window and Tannehill might actually hear me. I'm not too far.
You know who Tannehill's going to throw to quite a bit?
Walker?
Or your favorite player?
I don't have any favorite players in Tennessee.
I'm feeling like I'm missing some sort of connection that he had.
Adam Humphries?
Adam Humphries.
Oh boy, I'm not playing Adam. Yeah, we'll talk about receivers soon enough, and I just don't like the way receivers are. Well, I like all the mid tier in the receivers. So yeah, we live on a little salary cap. You can't spend up on all the dudes. That's probably where I'm saving salary. Tuttle, before we move on from quarterback, again, it's all these guys are playable, right? At least the first 7 or 8. Well, I guess they all are in theory. Do you have a hot take amongst the dudes that are going to be popular out there? Ryan, Goff, Allen, we mentioned Murray. Doesn't sound like you guys are on Murray so much. The Giant is Lawrence Taylor playing today? Why do you guys not like Murray? What did I miss?
We like him.
Oh, okay. I thought I heard besmirching. There was no besmirching?
No, it was just when comparing him to the GOAT Josh Allen.
Well, he's not.
Where the besmirching came in.
Josh Allen is not a GOAT. Come on.
How is he not a GOAT?
The GOAT chucker. But and it's a good matchup. It's a good matchup.
He has the Bills at 4-1, which is only loss. They've never lost a game this season.
He's a good game manager.
He's never lost a game this season when he's played a full game.
How many fantasy points do I get for a W?
When it includes 2 rushing touchdowns, that's at least 12.
Well, that's a caveat. That's not actually
got him.
That's not a got him. That's a ridiculous rebut.
You added a caveat to it.
Tuttle, talk about quarterbacks more if you want, or we can talk about running backs. It's Chalk Leonard Fournette week, right? Because he's facing the Bengals. What are you doing with this?
Yeah, it's Chalk Lenny week.
Lenny.
Fat Lenny. I mean, you kind of just play him. Does have enough involvement in the passing game as well, so he's a strong play on PPR sites. He's actually, last I looked, I think it was this week, he only has actually one carry inside the 5-yard line. But he's top 5 or top 10 in carries inside the red zone. So hopefully he'll get some closer looks this week, a better matchup for it. So he's been putting up really strong fantasy numbers without touchdowns. That's basically the point I'm trying to make. So if the touchdowns hit, then he's gonna have a really, really monster week. Other strong plays, kind of dependent on sites. Like we can play Saquon Barkley on Fanduel. I don't think you can really play him in your cash game lineups on Draftkings just because of the pricing. On Draftkings, though, then you have Chris Carson, who's extremely cheap, who's only $6,500. He's a little bit more expensive on Fanduel and not as strong of a play there. So it's just going to depend on the sites that you want to play at. And then the other guy I'll mention, I'll get all the chalk out of the way right away. Brings back memories of last week with Malcolm Brown, Latavius Murray. Kamara's out. We assume Lat's going to go in and pretty much get all the work he can handle as the top running back for New Orleans. Not a good matchup. So I think he's still going to be really chalky, but it is kind of reminiscent of last week.
Yeah, man, the proud of UCF. He's Tim Allen. He's the last man standing there in New Orleans. I guess talk about Michael Thomas in a second too. Like we know he's going to play Michael Thomas, and like in theory, he might get like 18 targets. That game is going okay if New Orleans is not losing 37-10.
I mean, how do you not
put 4 guys on him?
Yeah, with this offense, how do you not if they somehow if New Orleans somehow finds a way to beat you with anybody but Michael Thomas, who cares?
Fire everybody.
Right. I don't know.
Are we sure that someone like Zach Zenner isn't going to get a bunch of carries?
They have a couple Zachs. They have Zach.
I remember when he wasn't he kind of like the freak athlete Twitter, Zach Zenner?
I think he was a Matic guy. I feel like he was a Matic guy. I could be wrong. I don't want to put any labels out there, but maybe he was a Spark guy. I
think he was.
Yeah. Zach Line, of course, is the other Zach I was trying to think of.
Well, I mean, the thing is, if this game does get out of hand, you're not going to see them just run Latavius Murray to the ground in the fourth quarter when they're down 2 scores.
Are we certain that they're just not going to give Murray that much work? I mean, do you remember Tim Hightower?
Whoa. What year is it?
That was 4 years ago.
Tim Hightower.
I do remember this.
Yeah, how often have we seen Peyton just be like, I want to use 2 running backs. I don't care who the second guy is. I need him in the game.
No, I'm more with Grant on this one than what the public perception. I think, like I said, Latavius is going to be chalk, I think. And it's
well, okay, is he going to be chalk on DK? Because he's 5-1 there, right? Okay, let's have that conversation. It depends. I think he's $12 on Yahoo. Is that correct? He's $12 on Yahoo, currently projected at 24% owned. That makes sense because he's only $2 above the floor. But Tuttle, this is kind of a quandary I'm having on DK when building lineups because you got Murray at 5-1. You got Kerryon Johnson, not a great matchup, but he's discounted at 5.1K. Jacobs not necessarily. Well, he's in a fine matchup where in theory you can get 25 touches at 5K as well. The aforementioned Mixon's 5K. Montgomery's kind of sort of so interesting. Williams, you think that game blows out, or you think he gets a little bit more of the usage, or if you think Jones is going to fumble the ball again? Edmonds, if something goofy happens to David Johnson, or even just if they're kind of thin, I think he's an interesting tournament guy. But have the conversation, Tuttle, as far as Murray's the same price as Johnson and Jacobs. How do you separate those 3? And of course, Freeman, just a little bit more than that. I like all those guys to various degrees. Say it again?
You've got Mixon.
He's my least favorite, I think, of that group. Tuttle, what say you?
Yeah, I think on DraftKings, because this is kind of where they're all priced real similarly. Yeah. You can even throw Derrick Henry in there at 5,800. He's right in that same price range too. But yeah, of the group, I think you side with, or at least I side with, I think I like Kerryon more than Latavius. I think I like Devontae more than Latavius. I think that's then where I would put Latavius in the mix and then go with the Josh Jacobs and Montgomery. But I think the first 2 guys I mentioned, Freeman, especially as of late, has shown more involvement in the passing game. So I'm just more confident that they'll have larger roles in the passing game than a guy like Latavius or even Montgomery and Josh Jacobs, like we mentioned. So on DraftKings specifically, I want to go with the guys that I have worth faith in their involvement as pass catchers.
Grant?
I want to go with the guys that I not only have more faith in their ability as pass catchers, but also have more faith that they're going to get the ball more. You mentioned Carrion and Freeman. They were getting 20 runs, basically, or 20 touches every single game. Latavius, again, I'm not sure how much they're going to use him. It's everyone thinks, oh, he's the only guy there. But Kamara, like, the only reason he did so well is because of his involvement in the passing game and how explosive he is pretty much everywhere on the field. Murray, I'm not sure it's going to be the same scenario. I think it's still going to be a split backfield. Like, they're probably going to throw in center. They're probably throwing Washington. They'll do something different than what we think, because that's what Sean Payton does to us every single time. So going with Kerryon Johnson, Freeman, Derrick Henry, who is going to run wild against the Chargers defense that has been absolutely atrocious. Even Coleman, Breida, they're better running backs in a better spot, and they're probably going to get the same workload. Jacobs in a better spot and going to get more of a workload. The list is literally super long in that entire price range of guys that are going to get more work than him in all likelihood, are in better spots and are better running backs.
No concern that Henry is going to see 8 in the box?
Does that really matter?
Well, more guys that are ready to tackle him that are closer to the line. That's something. There's no
expecting the Chargers to do what they're supposed to do is not something you can rely on. And expecting the Chargers defense to shut someone down is not something we've seen all season long. They just got destroyed by Pittsburgh, where you're expecting a lot of guys to be in the box, but this is not a spot where I think there's a reason why Tennessee started off as a pick 'em, and now the line's been slowly moving over towards them all week long. They're the favorites. They're going to win this game in all likelihood, and they're going to be running the ball later in the game. Henry has the ability to break off a huge run. Chargers, even if they're stacking up the box, are a terrible run defense. And if they are going to stack up the box, then Tannehill actually has some guys in this offense that can easily go with dump off passes in Humphreys and Walker. They still Brown or what's his name? Davis will probably be shut down by Hayward, but I don't think this is going to be a Derrick Henry game. He's going to crush.
Yeah, he's game flow dependent, and you presume if they're ahead, he'll get 20 to 25 touches, so kind of grind the game down. And I agree. I think he's a pretty reasonable spot, and also he's cheaper than we've seen basically as the season's progressed. And he's a little bit more expensive than those guys that we talked about. Hey, Tuttle, Barkley, we assume he's a full go, right? The Giants wouldn't play him otherwise. That would make no sense, correct?
Yeah, I assume he's a full go. I guess there's some hesitate. You could be worried about it a little bit, but I think he's a full go. And he was a full practice participant pretty much all week. I think Wednesday on, he was the full participant. So it would be real sketch if he wasn't a full go. David
Johnson, what are we doing here? Because there's some concern there. Again, coach said on Friday he probably wouldn't play. I think he's most interesting on Yahoo, where he's $23. I'm considering playing him in cash. That just seems too cheap for me. I think he's running back 11 or something over there against the Giants, assuming he would get his normal share. That just seems too cheap for me. I'm not sure what to do, though. Help me out. What do we do with DJ?
Man, I would be more hesitant this week with an ankle than the back situation he saw last week.
Multiple body parts.
Yeah, and they were already – it's not like Chase Edmonds has been bad with his opportunities as well. He's been actually really good. So
he's been better. Let's say that.
Yeah, I would temper expectations with DJ a little bit. And I'll probably actually, after the show, adjust my rankings on him a little bit to lower him in the rankings. Again, it's actually one of the better games, I think, to play from a fantasy perspective. But I would expect at least a little bit of limitation for DJ.
Want to save as much time as possible for questions, so we shall move on soon enough. Grant, is it interesting that nobody's going to play Dalvin Cook today?
You really think no one's going to play Dalvin Cook?
Okay, I guess I didn't frame that correctly. Let's jump and see. As of right now, current ownership projections: Fournette at 30%, Carson 25%, 23% for Barkley. It's work all the way down. I'm scrolling, and let's see, Aaron Jones at 2%. Where do we have Cook?
10% on Yahoo, where he's the highest priced guy by far. but
He's
he's
$4 over there.
18% over on DK. Yahoo, that's strictly a price thing where you can get Barkley or you can get Fournette at drastically cheaper price tags. Over on DK, he's going to be owned because he has such a significant workload. Like, I'm playing him probably slightly more than the field. There's no reason to think that he's going to be unowned.
Okay, my bad. I thought it'd be less than 18%, to be honest. I did not see that ownership projection. In my head, I would take under, but I will yield to Domino in this. Anything else here of note that we should talk about as far as running backs? You want to know about receivers?
I mean, just reiterating Mixon being 5K, very talented, close game. Jags have been bad on defense. End of analysis.
You think he's distinctly better than Murray or Johnson or a not much more expensive Freeman?
Yeah, I mean, for raw points, I don't think so. But when you incorporate it in ownership, he might be the best play out of the 5K group.
Anything else as far as running backs there, Tuttle, or you want to talk about some receivers?
I think we're good.
Receivers, open it up. It's yours.
Yeah, so have you guys heard about this T.Y. Hilton fella?
I've heard like 7 years ago he went off against Houston. So that means today he has to be good, right? Against Houston?
Yeah.
Is that not a thing?
The thing is, though, for the player versus team truthers out there, this is like a really good spot in terms of the Houston secondary is actually really injured as well. So they're playing a bunch of backups. So they're definitely going to victory lap this one regardless.
Is Luck throwing the ball to him today or no? Because he was the quarterback like 30 years ago.
Well, he wasn't the quarterback for that 1 year he was injured.
The year they played against Tim Biakabatuka? Like, I don't know who was the guy you brought up earlier? Somebody else.
Oh, Tim Hightower?
Tim Hightower. I don't know.
Tim Hightower.
Yeah, I believe they did play against Tim Hightower.
Tim Hightower might have played against T.Y. Hilton 7 years ago in a dome.
It was 3 years ago after he was traded from the Patriots.
Oh, I guess somebody we didn't mention is Marlon Mack's probably the best tournament option on this team.
Yeah, he's fine. How much are you stressing to get Mack?
I think he's got a nice price on DraftKings specifically, and the Colts defense is really cheap in play on DraftKings as well. So I actually don't like I like the correlation pairing there for tournaments, and it also gets you off Hilton, who is going to be the chalk on DraftKings.
Can I just say something about Hilton? He crushes versus Houston because every single game he's ever played against Houston has been in a dome. And
so he crushes in domes.
Yes. So the versus a certain team is entirely irrelevant here. His numbers are basically the same in domes and versus Houston.
Does he crush versus Atlanta?
Okay. Who doesn't crush
Minnesota? Just throwing out some other random teams.
Well, this is the only team that's in his division that he faces twice a year. Other teams he might face once every 3 years. So any other team in a dome, he probably doesn't face that often.
I don't know. The player versus team analysis is pretty solid, I think.
the sarcasm was like a 9 out of 10. If you guys can't pick it up.
There was probably 4 or 5 years ago when touting was just kind of becoming a thing for DFS. There was for baseball, there was player versus stadium analysis out there.
Yeah.
That was my personal favorite.
I mean, it made sense for guys like D.D. Westbrook with the short, left field, right field, whatever, where he just barely made it out of the ballpark every single time. So his home run numbers were highly inflated because why are we talking baseball?
Don't sleep on the batter's eye, man. The batter's eye is important. All right. So here's the question, Tuttle. As far as Hilton, is that he's going to be 32% owned on DK. That's our current projection. Hilton traditionally is one of those kind of like guys that are volatile, and you probably aren't supposed to play the incredibly volatile guys who are going to be heavily owned. That the book says you're supposed to fade Hilton, but the 7-year data Tuttle suggests you're supposed to play Hilton. So what are we doing?
Well, the matchup's good too, like I mentioned. I do think you want to take an underweight stance in large field tournaments. I think that's pretty clearly the move. If he burns you, he burns you. But I do think you want to take an underweight stance in tournaments, and even like I mentioned with Marlon Mack, if you want to even go beyond the underweight stance and kind of make a leverage play on it, I do think Marlon Mack is the leverage play. I mean, this is a Colts team that wants to run the ball as much as possible. I think they got the 4th highest rush rate in the league. So if things go as planned, they do want to run the ball. So we could be seeing a game where Jacoby sees 25 pass attempts. I think that is pretty much an ideal game script for them. So Hilton gets his targets in that sense, or in that game still, but it's going to be much more limited amount of targets. He's not going to be a guy that's going to crack double-digit targets in this spot a whole lot, I don't think. So he is a pretty strong and pretty easy fade, I think, in large field tournaments.
A power rank dollar for dollar the receivers in that Rams Atlanta game.
Man, dollar for dollar.
Well, it changes things.
Yeah, and it's going to be based on site, because a site like DraftKings has Cooks and Woods really, really cheap in comparison to Cooper Kupp. So on that site, I think Woods has shown more involvement in the offense, but I really like Cooks this week. So on a site like DraftKings, where there's such a big gap in pricing, then I would go Woods, Cooks, and then Kupp. But anywhere where Kupp is close enough to the other two in pricing, I think Kupp is the number one guy.
I like Ridley a good bit too. It's a little bit cheaper than Cooks as well on the other side. Of course, Julio's a great play. We learned a little bit salary cap. You have a take on that, Grant, as far as your favorite receivers in that game?
Ridley, Woods.
All right. Anybody else that's worth talking about at the top before we kind of work our way to the mid-tier? For me, I'm kind of finding myself in the mid-tier, at least from a cash game perspective. Fitzgerald's still fine. Better play on Fanduel than he is on DK. He's okay on Yahoo. I don't necessarily need him over there. I think there's better spots. Galladay is pretty reasonably cheap on DK, so don't mind him. The matchup not necessarily great. I'm going back to Boyd. I think Boyd's too cheap pretty much all over the place around the industry. Don't mind picking on Jacksonville. I know Jacksonville's got that name brand as far as defense, but I'm not afraid of him. Your boy John Brown, I like him. He's reasonably priced as well too. Too cheap on Fanduel, too cheap on DK. He's fine on Yahoo. Give me some takes here as far as receiver, Grant.
All right. Well, up top, a guy that I don't think we talked about was Michael Thomas. And why are we not talking?
I mentioned him in passing.
He hasn't had a game under 16 points all season long. He's going to get 10 targets. He's 100% going to get 10 targets. His target share is increased by the fact that Kamara's not in the game. He's going to get a boatload of yards, a boatload of receptions, has one of the largest over the last 2 years catch rate, or one of the best catch rates in the entire NFL. He's going to get the volume. It's a tough matchup. No one's going to be on him. He's going to be the lowest owned of pretty much any guy over, 6K? He might be the lowest owned of every single one of them. And he's the same price as basically Hopkins and Julio. The chances of him outscoring them are pretty great. His floor is higher. His ceiling might be higher. He's going to get massive volume. Michael Thomas might be the best play on the board at wide receiver. We get into the mid. Just
going to chime in there, 4% currently on Yahoo and 8% currently on DK to speak to your point. But go ahead, continue.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you chiming in there. But the mid-tier, everyone's all over Hilton. I get the reasons why, but also why. We have Chark, we have Woods, we have Tate, who's going to be the main guy in that offense. I don't think that Peterson's going to be shadowing him in this game, and he's a guy that just had a massive game last time out. Galladay, who's put up massive games at a huge rate this season, has, I think, only had one game under 10 points this season. Yeah, he's had one game under 10 points and 2 games under 20. He's the same price as Tate or as Hilton. Why would we not play Galladay over Hilton if he's going to come in at 1/3, 1/4 the ownership? We got Boyd, who's the main target in that offense, and Jacksonville hasn't been great versus wide receiver ones, and now they don't have Ramsey, so numbers are even further skewed. We got Robinson, who's getting the main time share or main target share in that offense. John Brown, who gets a massive target share going up against the worst pass defense in NFL history. Ridley, who, if Ramsey does just end up shadowing Julio with this high total, he's probably going to go off. Marvin Jones, who's also getting a decent amount of work going up against Minnesota. There's so many good pivots off of T.Y. Hilton. Why do we need to go with T.Y. Hilton?
Yeah, it's perfectly reasonable. And again, that's DK specific for me. For Hilton, on Yahoo, he's too expensive, even for my cash game build. Fanduel as well. I think he just makes the most sense on DK for cash games. That's where I'm at right now. I roll out more than one cash games. Tuttle, is he currently on your old cash game build right now in DK Hilton?
Yeah.
But probably not your tournaments. At least that's what I was hearing before.
Yep.
All right. Feel free to elaborate more.
I think in DK cash builds, you're just piling up that 5 to 6K range for your receivers. It's kind of what I think you're doing, which, again, if that's going to be the common construction, then try to avoid that, I would say, in tournaments. It's a DeAndre Hopkins troll week, I think, is because I'm not going to have a whole lot of exposure to him, and I've had a lot of exposure to him the last couple of weeks, so it just seems like a week for him to go off. With the Michael Thomas love, I mean, I get it, but for me, it's just like the Bears have a bye week. This is legitimately the only way the offense is going to move with Kamara out is through Michael Thomas. If you cannot stop Michael Thomas, you are a complete and utter systemic failure.
Whoever stops Michael Thomas? No one has ever stopped
I understand, and really the Bears, if the Bears have had any weakness on defense, it has been in the secondary this year as well. It's just like game plan wise, like if Michael Thomas gets over 100 yards against you with Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback, with Latavius Murray at running back, like just throw it in. Your season's over with. So I understand the points for Michael Thomas, but he's not a guy that I'll have a lot of exposure to. And I'll ultimately just be pissed off that the Bears are a terrible organization if he goes off.
Is there a cheap receiver you like? I don't like any cheap receivers. We're kind of waiting for this Green Bay news, but as of right now, I don't know. Lazard's out for me unless like things kind of open up for him. But I just don't like the cheap receivers today. Is that a general consensus?
I think if you're looking –
it's about the mid-tier for me.
Yeah, if you're looking under like 5K on DraftKings, I think Beasley's probably the most reasonable that you could go. Again, he's kind of more of like a consistent producer than a spiked producer, but it is a matchup where it also wouldn't be all that surprising to see him see 10 targets, and if he gets a touchdown, then he will get 20 fantasy points, which is kind of what you're looking for in tournaments. I've seen Dante Pettis.
That's the guy you're leading with, though. If you're leading with Beasley, that kind of speaks to my point, though, right?
Right. Yeah, there's not a ton of upside guys down here. Dante Pettis.
What about Hump Dog?
Come on.
Hump Dog Millionaire.
First of all, nobody calls him Hump Dog.
Well, Grant just did, actually.
Yeah. So you are categorically incorrect.
Tannehill is throwing the football to him. I'm not sure if you're aware. Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but Tannehill threw the football to him a decent amount last week.
Okay.
So Are
you playing Hump Dog, Grant?
With people playing Lazard? Yes. He's 400 more.
He saw 6 targets last week, by the way. Hump Dog.
Do you know how much he's projected at? Let's see, 1/190th of the ownership.
That's too low.
Lazard is projected at 190 times the
That's going to
ownership.
change once the Green Bay news comes out. I think that's going to change. We'll see. Stay tuned.
I mean, it could change for a higher ownership.
I'm looking at the chat. The chat's throwing out some names. Oh, Mike Williams. He's number 1 in the buy low air yards. Tuttle, we excited about Mike Williams?
He's an okay play. I made this point on the Swolecast too. If you watched that game at all, I can tell you why he's number 1. It was all late. It was specifically, I think the last 2 plays were where Rivers just chucked the ball 50 yards and nowhere close to Mike Williams. But it
doesn't have anything to do with the fact that he's had 10 targets each of the last 2 games.
Well, 100 of his air yards, which we were talking about, the air yards.
Not all targets are created equal when it comes to air yards. Yeah.
Right.
Drop an A-dot on him there, Tuttle.
Yeah, A-dot. Biatch.
A-dot I don't think is that bad.
No, it's actually pretty good because
suck biatch.
Well, he's telling you why.
I was telling you why.
Is A-dot outside those play? Because you have to realize a significant portion of those are ones where they're on the 10-yard line and they throw a fade pass to him because he is such a tall, athletic guy that he's able to bring it down over the cornerback. And he missed 2 of them, I think, that could have been touchdowns, one of which he was forced out of bounds. So the average depth of target is likely due to the fact that when they're in the end zone, they have a propensity to throw to him because the other team is now covering Keenan Allen because of what he did the first 3 weeks.
Keenan's dust. Play him this week.
I've heard people talk him up, and they're just, for me, that game stinks. And now every single week the Chargers add a new piece. So why?
Well, because they've had that same amount of pieces multiple times in the last 2 years. I mean, just look at what happened 2 years ago on that one Sunday where he ended up going for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think prior to that, people had given up to him, even though earlier on this season he was a massive volume guy. People gave up on him, and it was week 10, and he hadn't had a good week in a few weeks, and then they decided to go his way. It depends on if the opposing team is going to try and shut him down or not. Now with the emergence of Hunter Henry back into the offense, will actually take some guys off of him. He won't get double teamed as much, and he's a guy that if he's single team, he's a good enough route runner, in fact, the best in the league. And so a great route runner in one-on-one coverage is likely to go for a whole bunch of receptions, a whole bunch of targets, and he's incredibly efficient.
Dude, you're freaking the almanac. You're out of nowhere, just pointing out week 10 of 3 years ago. And
I don't know if you know this, but there's only a 17, 16, 18 game sample size each year with NFL. So going back 3 years, it's still only a 50 game sample size. And especially with injuries, you may not have a big enough sample size to remind you. So just going off of 6 games is not proficient enough.
But I can find a guy that 3 years ago went off too. I can do that with any player.
Did you look at the scenario? It's not like Keenan Allen has gone off, 20
Hunter
times?
Henry didn't play in that game you cited, I'm going to guess. I'm just going to assume. And it is interesting. It's an interesting theory because, is Henry good? Because, like you said, it's one more defensive guy the defense has to worry about. He's probably going to take away a couple targets, but not all targets are created equal. Maybe his targets become enhanced and efficiency becomes improved. So it's again, that's that sort of push-pull of is it a good thing or is it a bad thing that he's on the field? We do have to move on, though. Tuttle, talk about tight ends today. They're asking about the Oakland receivers. The Gazelle's not going to play.
Trevor Davis revenge game.
Yeah.
Revenge. Trevor Davis, baby. No, I had a terrible take I wanted to get off real quick.
Fire it off.
This is what I wanted to be my terrible take on the Spoilcast, but I kept forgetting his name. I kept forgetting to mention him. It's kind of the slot receivers against the Saints take. And I know Taylor Gabriel's back, but Anthony Miller finally has been running routes in the slot. He kind of got screwed the first couple of weeks of the season because they were running Tariq Cohen so much in the slot. I still think he'll get the snaps in the slot with Taylor Gabriel back. I think Javon Wims is the guy that's going to see the reduced workload. So Anthony Miller is my terrible take. I think he scores a touchdown today.
All right, there you go. Tight ends, if you have all the money in the world, Kittle, obviously against Washington. Ingram, I'm sure you've heard about the flow chart, yada, yada, yada. Hooper in the game with the highest total against the Rams. Andrews, he doesn't stand – he's only on the field for half the plays, but, whenever he's on there, he's doing things. He's hurdling. Waller seems to be a guy – oh, here's a narrative for you. Waller just got paid. So I assume he's going to chill now or he's going to justify that contract. Good for him. He should get, 10 targets or so against Green Bay. And Hunter Henry, the aforementioned Hunter Henry, super cheap on DK. Probably a good play there. Not as strong as play on Yahoo or other places around the industry. Grant, let's try to do this pretty quickly because I want to save some time for questions in the chat. But give me your approach as far as tight ends.
Well, first I'm going to say that Keenan Allen in that game did, in fact, have both Hunter Henry and Mike Williams playing. It was a game in which the 4 prior games he had less than 8 targets in 3 of them. And he started off the season with double-digit targets. So literally the exact same scenario as we have right now.
They're facing Tennessee in a 39 total?
They were actually facing Buffalo, and some guy threw 5 interceptions in the first half.
Fitzpatrick. Oh, not the other guy. No.
Can't even remember his name. But in terms of tight ends, there's obviously Evan Ingram being one of the top plays going up against Arizona. He's a high-volume guy. They're missing Shepard, so it's going to be him and Tate pretty much in the entirety of the offense outside of Saquon. I really like Waller, though. You mentioned it. I absolutely love him here. He's getting high volume of targets. He has yet to find the end zone, I believe, this season, and he's still averaging 18 points a game. So he's going to get the volume. He's going to get targets. He's going to get receptions. He's going to get yards. Really like Hunter Henry, even though Keenan Allen's going to go off. Henry still has the ability to go off, too. Phillip Rivers can put up 400 yards passing. He does it a lot, even against Tennessee, especially if they're going to be in catch-up mode at the end of the game. Outside of them, Everett and Hawkinson are both cheap. There's not Andrews is a great play going up against Seattle where he's the main pass catcher. But my main 2 guys are Waller and Ingram.
Peterman. Good job, chat. That's who it was. Jump in here.
Peterman. I think Gruden loves him, speaking of.
The Peter Copter, I believe, is a big T. As many people call him the Peter Copter as people call Humphreys Hump Dog. But we don't have time to get that nonsense. We got to save some time for the questions in the
chat. I don't know if you were aware of this, but dogs hump.
I've seen video. I have the YouTube. Tuttle, tight ends?
I mean, I think Grant mentioned everyone. It's all the guys up top are obvious.
Cash. Who's your favorite cash tight end?
I'll go out the
Depends where you're
Ingram.
shopping.
Yeah, it depends shopping and price tag. DraftKings, it's a little bit harder to get up to Evan Ingram because he's 6,500. But if he's priced similarly, then he's the guy that I prefer. Darren Waller is the guy I think on DK that I would take over Mark Andrews at the similar price range. Both fine options. Hunter Henry's kind of the cheap option. Kind of a throw up in your mouth option that I wrote up. He's a corpse. He's running routes. He can't catch, but he's running routes. He's on the field. The pass catchers, are depleted. Jimmy Graham.
Ugh.
Like you hope that he can actually catch one of his end zone targets this week is kind of where you're going with that one. But I think he does make some sense in tournaments. All
right. Start loading those questions in chat. Our fabulous multitasking producer, the D-Train, all alone in the office today, I presume. He's grabbing some questions over there on YouTube. If you guys are watching us on YouTube, feel free to like and subscribe. Much appreciate that. And we're going to pull your questions, knock out as many as possible before we step aside and get out of here. Again, premium shows are free today. The shows that are following us with STL Cards, Brit, Tip and Pick. That's the tournament show. That will be free, so stay tuned on the stream. It'll just kick in there, as well as Crunch Time. All the way up to lock, you got JSU answering all your questions as well. Give me some defensive takes here, Tuttle. Grant, you answer them as well. We're going to do our favorite stacks, then we'll knock out some questions. Tuttle, defense, fire.
Bills are good.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're probably a pretty good defense. I do like the Bears defense quite a bit, especially where they're cheaper. 49ers defense. I mean, these are all obvious takes. I don't know if I have an off-the-board take, really. Colts, I think, on DraftKings are fine just because they're cheap. And we know that Watson does take sacks if they can actually catch them. So I think Colts is the cheapest you could go on DraftKings.
Grant, defense and your favorite, maybe a game stack, a correlation stack. Give me something.
First, I have to rebut Mangone in chat. He said in 4 games combined, T.Y. Hilton has done this. Yeah, let's disregard the fact that the two games he played against Minnesota were not in a dome. They were in their old stadium, or one of which was in the stadium. They were playing in between domes.
The Gophers?
TCF Bank. Yeah, it's the Gopher Stadium.
Yeah, and the other one was again in one of the games versus Atlanta. He didn't do well. The other one, he had 10 targets and 8 receptions. Defense, just play the Bills.
But we live in a world with salary cap, Grant.
Yeah, you do realize that's only 1,000 more. Drop one player down, that's $1,000 cheaper.
They're expensive in some places, but yeah, their Bills obviously.
Well, then play a super cheap defense. We live in the world of salary cap, so go for the cheapest defense on the board. Go with the Colts. Go with the Redskins. Good. San Francisco doesn't put up a huge amount of points, and defense is volatile, and they're only 1.7K. Go with the Bengals going up against Jacksonville. It's still a rookie quarterback who can easily get beat up a little bit.
Oh man, I just got a instant beat writer onto my Twitter feed about T.Y. Hilton.
What is it about the
it's actually, and I thought it was going to be about the player versus team. It's different. So you can take this narrative how you want. Including the playoffs, T.Y. Hilton has gone 7 straight games without 100 yards receiving, which is the longest drought of his career. Clearly, the big-time run emphasis has impacted the major production from Hilton. He's averaging 62.6 yards during those games.
There you go. Give me a correlation play, Tuttle. I don't think Grant gave me one. He didn't.
The one that I wrote up, if you're trying to use correlation and leverage a little bit, would be the Minshew mania. So Minshew, Didi's going to suit up, but then Shark as well. If you just want to go chalk, it's pretty clear. It's pretty clearly the Atlanta game.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's a lower owned. I'm actually interested now because we do have that Atlanta game, what Josh Allen's ownership is going to be. Like I mentioned, you don't necessarily have to pair him with anybody, but he does have some okay options. John Brown's a good option to pair him with, and then Beasley as well. And Beasley's going to be real low owned still.
Brown's cheap. Yeah, he's cheap in some spot. Beasley feels like a guy who's probably popping in models, but like I'm probably not going to play.
He's popping in models, but nobody will play him.
Yeah.
Because nobody likes playing Cole Beasley.
X him out. Let's run it again. Let's run it back.
Tuttle, by the way, take this in context. Prior to the last 7 games for the Hilton, the previous 6 ones, he averaged 130 yards per game.
There you go.
How did he play at FAU? Or is it FIU? Do you have those stats on you by hand? What are those?
FIU?
Well,
FIU or FAU?
I don't know. Has something changed most recently where he might not be? You know,
He hasn't gone off for a long touchdown, largely because he probably hasn't played a whole lot of games against teams that will give up a large touchdown. Atlanta hasn't been, but don't break defense. Kansas City has a great pass rush, not allowing him to throw the ball downfield.
Well, what are the target numbers and what are the rush rates in those games?
He's averaged over the last year roughly 10 targets a game.
Well, no, I'm talking more recently. More recently,
target numbers? 4, 10, 6, 9, 11, 10. That's in the last 6 games.
We got questions in chat to tend to. I promise we're going to answer these questions.
So this year, what he's averaging, not very good.
One of which of the games he got injured.
This is not working.
The other ones were tough matchups. If you're getting shut down,
fade him in tournaments, play him in cash on draft. There you go.
We could have done that 20 minutes ago. I think we said that 20 minutes ago.
We already did that 30 minutes ago.
All right. Grant, you're batting first as far as questions. Settle then you, and then we'll run it back at the top. Grant, I got a twofer for you. This is for tournaments. Thielen and the Bills versus Hilton. There you go. And the Niners.
Hilton and the Niners. The Niners are the other viable cash game defense just because of the team.
We just said don't play Hilton in tournaments. But that was Fanduel specific.
Oh, that was for tournaments? You go with the first one for tournaments, the second one for cash.
To be fair, Hilton will be less known on Fanduel for what it's worth. Cincy is a Yahoo cash defense. I think they're like $11. I prefer Seattle if you can get to Seattle at 12, just because that game there might be some muck in that game.
We've not kind like of ignored that game totals on the entire slate.
Yeah, I know, but they're cheap, and we live in the world with salary cap.
And there might be some muck.
There might be some muck. You got to factor in the muck. Is that we kind of ignored that game total, and that's the game I know I'm most concerned about because I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, Carson's the main guy that I'm looking at in that game. And again, it's mostly where he's cheap. But yeah, that game could be high scoring.
All right, let's try to put this in higher gear, Grant, because there's a lot of questions here. We're going to knock out as many as possible. Ryan versus Goff in cash.
Ryan, just rapid fire him right now. I'll get through them all.
Well, Tuttle's here too. He's going to.
He's relevant.
I can log off. I'm cool with that.
Well, whoever wants to, this is Jeopardy style, just buzz in. A twofer, Hooper and Jacobs versus Henry and Carson.
Henry and Carson.
We still that question repeated. Any interest in Gesicki? No.
No. Gesicki? No, probably not.
No.
Tight end.
Yeah, now I'm seeing repeats of questions, unfortunately. Can you handle a threesome, Grant?
Yeah, Dean, this is not rapid fire. If you ask a different question to get to a question, it's not rapid fire.
You spent way too many words. Hilton, Murray, and Barkley versus Kupp, Freeman, and Carson. Cash.
Second one.
Trubisky, any interest?
No.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Josh Hill, Mercedes Lewis, or Darren Fells?
Fells is absolutely the play there. He's going to go for 15. We didn't mention him during tight end.
Fitzmagic or Dalton?
Dalton.
Any interest in Giants defense? Tournaments?
Not a huge amount, but yes. Anytime you get a team that's that volatile with that bad of an offensive line going against, and they run that many plays, you have huge upside with it.
Rapid fire. Can you play L-Jax naked?
Yes.
Cash, Lockett or Chark?
Chark.
I know the money for either one of those guys. Allen or Goff in cash?
Probably going Allen.
Best cheap defense for DK cash. I think that answers the
Cincinnati.
Colts. Yeah?
Yeah.
Hey, what about Todd Gurley with, before he got hurt, he had that one game where he went 93% of the snaps. He's in the game with the highest total.
He's got a massive amount of targets over the last 2 games. He's still the highest touchdown equity guy pretty much in the NFL and has been over the last 25 games, even with C.J. Anderson coming in. Now he's a guy that is the main back in there after we already saw snap count go up drastically the last 2 weeks.
Rapid fire. What just happened?
It's not like we have 3 questions left that I can answer.
You don't know how many I have in my back pocket. I had some more questions. But we've
got the YouTube channel, man.
Robinson or Thomas?
Tuttle's still here. I thought Tuttle logged off. What's up, Tuttle?
Oh yeah, can I just bounce or?
Feel free to buzz in anytime. You're good. He's like free. He's going all Ken Jennings on you over there.
Peace out, fellas.
Let's holler, Tuttle. Grant, Robinson or Thomas in tournaments?
Thomas.
Different price, right? Like
Thomas.
That's a different. Okay. Everett, is he your favorite cheap tight end?
No, it's Fells.
Okay. Any interest in Phil Rivers?
Rivers is in play again. He can go off for 400 yards at any
Are
given
you-
time, but it's a tough matchup.
You embracing the chalk there for Fournette, or are you kind of going to be
Yes,
under
I'm
or
embracing
overweight?
it. I'm probably overweight.
Pick one of these three: Galladay, Woods, or Hilton in cash.
Hilton and Cash.
Pick one of these three in cash: Ridley, Boyd, or Tuttle's. What's up, Tuttle? Is he playing poker? I hear poker chips or something in the background.
I keep dropping my Aladdin genie coin on accident.
One or two more before we step aside and get out of here. Grant, Fanduel cash: Ridley, Boyd, or Fitzgerald.
Fitzgerald.
Tournaments: Henry versus Hooper.
Henry.
Tuttle, finish strong. Give the people something.
Wait, what? What?
Henry versus Hooper?
Huh?
Wait. Hold on. Hunter
There-
Henry versus Austin Hooper.
Hoop. There it is.
Right.
Well, that was well played. I lost that one.
Tuttle, finish strong. Give people something good.
Oh, I mean, I don't get what I just answered. Hooper.
All right.
What am I supposed to give?
Grant, the bar's been set. See if you can beat that.
Darren Fells goes for 15 points, and Natty Light Hard Seltzer is better than White Claw or Truly.
Oh, we're giving takes now.
That was not strong at all.
We
gotta go.
D.D. Westbrook is the top scoring Jacksonville player.
We never give takes the entire show, Tuttle.
Boom.
Some people have columns dedicated to takes specifically. He's Tuttle. He's Grant. Stay tuned again. Free. All the premium stuff is free. Coming up next, you got Tip and Pick. You got Britt and STL Cards, and of course JSU. If we didn't answer your question, taking you guys all out to lock. We're out of here. Holla.
See you guys.
Hey now, what's up, RotoGrinders, and welcome to Gridiron IQ, the latest and greatest from RotoGrinders to help you make short work of your NFL DFS research each week. What I'm going to do here in this video is break down the elements of Gridiron IQ, help you get started. Without further ado, let's get down to business. Let's talk about the tabs on the left-hand side of the screen, which are player-level research stats. We've got the Opportunity tab, the Efficiency tab, and the Production tab. Now, opportunity is king in NFL DFS, and you're going to find all the stuff that you know and love over here. Rush attempts, pass attempts, targets, target share, you name it, market share of air yards. We've only got a couple weeks worth of data looking backwards from this current week. If you want to get all the stats for this season, you can go to Josh ADHD's premium usage app here on RotoGrinders. That's going to have more comprehensive data points all the way back to the start of the season, but for Gridiron IQ, we're trying to save space. We're trying to save time. We've got just the last couple of weeks in here for your opportunity metrics needs. Now, when you jump to the Efficiency tab, this is where we're looking at putting some context on player production. How good are these guys? You've got your clean pocket stats for quarterbacks, your pressure stats. You've got some elusiveness and power stats for running backs. You've got some target quality metrics down here for wide receivers. I encourage you to check all this stuff out. We've got tool tips on every single stat so that you can learn what they are, maybe learn a little bit about football in the process. We'll break down some of these things in a little bit more detail in future tutorial videos on Roto Academy, but just for now, we're giving you a quick overview of what we've got here in Gridiron IQ. The Production tab, some of your basic counting stats, and we've even got some advanced stats from Sports Info Solution on zone blocking, gap blocking, things that you don't see everywhere. How do these players produce in these situations? For wide receivers, we've got versus man coverage and versus zone coverage. Again, stuff you're just not going to find around every corner. Talking about explosive plays for everybody. And finally, playerprofiler.com has helped us out with some stats for expected stats, comparing what they've actually scored in fantasy points to what they should have maybe scored based on their opportunity and situation. We love that. And overall, we think there's some great things that you can find here in the Production tab. Now, if we're talking about the right-hand side of the screen, we're talking about team level stats. The overview tab is where you're going to land, and that's going to give you your basic fantasy points per game for the season in the last 4 weeks, and your Football Outsiders DVOA stats, which you know and love from their website. You know, they've got some great information that tells us descriptively who has done really well on offense and defense in the past, as well as their adjusted line yards and adjusted sack rate metrics, which tell us about run blocking, run defense, and then their pass rush and the ability to avoid the pass rush when we're talking about the offensive line. Overall, some great stats from great data providers. Our identity tab tells us about the offensive and defensive identity for each team. We line them up on both sides with the tooltips so you can understand what each stat is. I love these formational stats. You know, how often does a team run 3 wides plus? How often do they run 2 tight ends plus? What's the situation neutral pace? What's the pace leading and trailing? We've got all this stuff side by side with offense and defense for you to break down the matchups in short order. We've done the same with some passing statistics and some rushing statistics, so you can dive a little bit deeper into the matchups there. And then finally, if you are someone who likes to get out there and make some bets, we've got your basic Vegas line information, which of course can help you break down a game for DFS, but also these player prop stats where we compare our projected values and the RotoGrinder stock projections to what's out there on the sharp side betting market. And we're giving you a rating from 0 to 100 as to whether or not our projections make this line a good one to bet the over or the under. And we'll share that with the side information right here. So yeah, we love the prop bets tool. Hopefully you'll find some value in this in your weekly prop bet research. Folks, that's going to do it for this tutorial video on Gridiron IQ. We'll have a lot more coming in Roto Academy so we can help you understand some better ways to research NFL DFS, including ways to do it with Gridiron IQ. Best of luck in all of your NFL DFS contests and your sports bets. For RotoGrinders.com, I am Chris Tremino. We will be back again very soon with more great tutorial videos on Gridiron IQ.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to your GPP Final Take Show here on RotoGrinders for Week 7. Free to all, not just premium members. You've been tweeting it out. So if you got friends or families, your brother, your sister, tell them to watch on RotoGrinders today. It is free for everyone, and we would appreciate you spreading the word. Here with the normal crew, we got STL Cards and John Tip and Pick Lee from Football Guys. John, I've had myself the first couple of weeks of DFS, right? I felt like it just didn't click for me, at least in my lineups, right? I've been on a pretty good roll in the recent weeks. I'm looking to continue it, and I really like my teams going into Week 7 right now.
Yeah, it was last week was an interesting week. I think we led off with that on the show, just talking about how there were some unique situations. I think early in the season there was a lot of favorites, a lot of chalk that was hitting, and last week it wasn't as clear. And not surprisingly, I had the best week of my season last week, and I'm looking to carry it on through this week and see whether or not we can stay hot.
Yeah, we got a couple of inactives we're waiting on. Cards. We've got this Green Bay wide receiver situation. As soon as I see that drop on Twitter on which one, if any, or if both of the actual Green Bay wide receivers play, we're going to have to do some mass changes to our lineups throughout the industry. We got a little bit of weather. There's no Christian McCaffrey, so we got to try to figure out who to actually play at running back a little bit too. Should be a pretty fun week. You might be on mute, Jen.
You're on mute, buddy.
Well, I tried to click it and I clicked it twice. It should be a fun week. We've got some interesting situations. We've had some key players change teams this week, which changes the landscape of this slate a little bit. And we've got some guys coming back as well. We got Saquon Barkley back in the mix this week too. We've still got teams going through their bye week. So it becomes a challenge to kind of fit all these pieces together and maybe change our mindsets as to guys that, we would normally like because of the spot, given their matchups today. So, and that Green Bay news, I think, is big. I think the sooner we can start breaking that down with what happens with their wide receiving.
Let's lead off with it real quick. If one of the Green Bay wide receivers plays, what are we doing with Lazard?
Nobody wants to be that.
No,
so
what are we doing?
We're saying one of Allison and MVS plays?
Yes.
I mean, I still think he's going to get snaps. You look at what happened last week in the Monday night game. Shepard has to be in the doghouse. He muffed the punt. He had the pass go off his helmet and get intercepted in return for 50 yards. I can't see them giving Shepard tons of snaps. MVS has been underwhelming at best over the last few weeks. Both him and Allison are banged up. Whether or not they play, you can argue how close they are to 100%. I think Lazard is going to get snaps today, and he's 3K on DraftKings. The question becomes, if one of those guys plays, what do we do with a receiver that's projected to be chalky? I mean, if we get news that Allison is in, we have Lazard at 19% projected ownership. How far does that drop? To me, it's all about where you want to try to gain leverage and trying to figure out how highly owned he really is going to be if we get news that one of those guys is going to play. It's a fantastic puzzle.
Yeah, we'll get to that as soon as it drops. We should have an inactives in the next 5 to 10 minutes, and as soon as it comes up, I will interrupt whatever it is we're talking about because that's probably the biggest news of the day. Weather-wise, we've got some rain in Seattle, slow, steady rain. Hey, it's fall in Seattle. It's raining. You guys should be able to figure out what to do there. I'm not really changing my lineups too much about that one. Washington, it's raining there pretty heavily, before the game. A little bit early in the game. Maybe it tapers off a little bit towards the end of the game, but the run game for the 49ers looks pretty good there, if you ask me. And then in the Giants-Cardinals game, we have some rain there. Might be dry to start the game and then rain a little bit as we move towards the game. And I'm not really changing anything based on some rain. Usually we adjust a little bit more if we get those 15-plus mile-per-hour winds. Let's jump into quarterback. John, I'm going to start with you. We got a couple of not new segments, but we're going to mix in throughout the show. I always talk about 5% on plays. We're doing a free show. I wanted to mix it up a little bit. So we're going to bring you some guys we really like that are lower owned and stress those are guys that we like as we move around positions today. But we've got, 25 to 30% of the projected ownership today going to this Atlanta Rams game. And I think it's for good reason. Atlanta plays no defense. The Rams are a big pace. It's in a dome. The over's going through the roof. What's your overall take on this game? Do these two quarterbacks deserve, what's for quarterbacks, reasonably high ownership? Or is the ownership, could we make an argument that it's not high enough as well? So where do you stand?
Where I stand is that it's not high enough, believe it or not. Typically, I like to focus on quarterbacks who are lower owned, but there's a difference between these teams, right? Their defenses have both been shaky at best recently, particularly the Atlanta Falcons, and they've got elites. Well, let's not call them elite. Let's call them above average quarterbacks, but they do have elites wide receiving and tight end cores, particularly there in Atlanta. For each team, you've got 3 or 4 guys who can catch the ball and catch the ball well, which I think really keeps things going here. The only thing I would maybe argue with, and we have the same projections for what it's worth, but I think the field has the 2 quarterbacks reversed. My favorite quarterback this week is Jared Goff, and it's largely not close. He's in over 20% of my lineups, and I think that this is a week where we see him return to what he did 2 weeks ago and 3 weeks ago. Last week, he had a terrible week, 78 passing yards. The entire offense fell apart. And recency bias is, I think, keeping his numbers a bit lower than what they should be, because 2 weeks ago and 3 weeks ago, you added those up. He had over 900 passing yards. And Todd Gurley, we don't know what his situation is. They gave him 90% of the snaps 2 weeks ago, and he came out of that game pretty badly to the point where he didn't play the following week. Malcolm Brown is inactive this week, which leaves only Darrell Henderson in terms of their backup. So I suspect they go a little less on the run this week, and they pass a lot more. And so for those reasons, I think that Goff is my top guy this week, but there's no reason to stay away from Matt Ryan for all the reasons you led forth, particularly based out of Vegas.
I like both of these quarterbacks as well. I'm sort of in your camp, John, where if you allocated 30 to 40% of your lineups to these 2 quarterbacks, I think it's pretty highly likely that if this game goes off and scores a lot of points and you don't have stacks of these guys, I don't know if there's enough firepower from some of the other names to really be able to compete, because all their wide receivers are going to be pretty highly owned as well. So I like a very small overweight on these, maybe underweighting a guy like Russell Wilson and a Josh Allen to play some of the lower owned guys is kind of my stance today. Where do you stand on the top of the ownership chart cards? And I'm going to probably interrupt you as news breaks throughout your little spiel.
Yeah, that's fine. No problem at all. I basically agree with exactly what you guys said. The Falcons defense is so bad that, you're going to get points scored in that game. And I know there's a narrative about Goff on the road.
All right, hold on.
Go for it.
Both Packers wide receivers are active.
So then the question becomes, in what capacity are they active?
We'll circle back to the quarterbacks here, because we really got to dissect what we're doing now with the Green Bay receivers, because everyone was playing Lazard in cash. Everyone was playing him in tournaments for salary savings. With MVS and Geronimo Allison active, can't play Lazard in cash anymore, and probably not too interested in tournaments. Correct, Justin?
Yeah, I don't think I am. I mean, he's still going to have some natural ownership from people that built set it and forget it lineups earlier in the week. He's obviously not going to be 19, but maybe he's still more like 6 or 8. And, the snaps are probably going to be a mess here. You're probably going to see, mixing and matching amongst all the guys that are active. It'd be nice if we knew, that one of them was only active in an emergency type of situation. Maybe that changes my mind a little bit. But really at this point, I don't think it's worth trying to figure out the headache, and maybe you pivot yourself to another, 3K guy. And not that other guys don't have risk, but you could consider a guy like Darrell Henderson, who you just mentioned there briefly, might have more of a role today. So to me, this is going to be a situation that I don't want a huge part of, unless we get news that Allison or MVS are just active for an emergency situation.
Yeah, I had Lazard and cash on both Yahoo and DraftKings. I'm currently clicking some buttons right now. John, what's your take on the situation? I have gone from, I really wanted to play Dalvin Cook, but I just swapped him out to Devontae Freeman to try to give me some room at wide receiver to make some adjustments here. What's your overall thoughts going into the Green Bay receiver core?
So I think this makes Lazard the number 4 receiver. I mean, maybe one of these guys is a is a decoy, and we won't know that until the game is played, of course. But I think what this does, the biggest message, if you're listening to anything I say about this, it makes Aaron Rodgers a really sharp play. He's currently 3% owned in our projections at Football Guys. If he's got Jimmy Graham, if he's got MBS, if he has Geronimo Allison, and they're going up against the Oakland Raiders, who, if I'm not mistaken, of course, I'm trying to pull it up on the fly and I can't find it. But the Oakland Raiders, the way to beat them is through the air. They're 6th rush DVOA, and they're 26th pass DVOA. So they have a pass funnel defense. I think that the way to go here is Aaron Rodgers. I had him at 3 times the field, but I think after we get off the show, I might go up to 4 based on this news.
All right, I got a couple other things. D.D. Westbrook active. I know you were looking for that, John, so we've got that going for us. Let's see. David Johnson is active. We sort of, if you read the tea leaves, expected that. Christian Kirk is out for the Cardinals. Josh Oliver, he's starting for Sunday at tight end for the Jaguars. Don't need to know if you go that deep at tight end, but he should get a lot of snaps, a lot of injuries there. Another thing, newly signed Ryan Grant is inactive for the Packers as well, so that probably tells you they probably expect MVS and Allison to probably play a reasonable amount of snaps. And Josh Norman, cornerback, not that it really matters. He's sort of dust this year. He is out. If you wanted to target a Dante Pettis or something in that game, who with Deebo Samuel out, looks like he should get a little bit of a target share today. So I think I've covered it. Any one of those, John? I think the D.D. Westbrook one was something you wanted to talk about here. So let's get that out of the way right now.
Yeah. So I mean, I think I'll bury the lead here, but I'm fading Leonard Fournette at his 40% ownership today. I just think there's too much leverage to be had by going away from him and focusing on the passing game. And again, it's a very similar situation. Jacksonville facing Cincinnati. Cincinnati's done nothing against the run, and no reason to, quote, fade Fournette outside of his ownership. At 40%, if Fournette has a Fournette day, and we've seen that happen way too many times over the years, it's likely because either the team flopped in general or because Gardner Minshew did it through his arm. And for me, it's DJ Chark. I hate saying his name because I always get that stupid song in my head. It's either DJ Chark or it's DJ Chark or DD Westbrook. And for me, it's Westbrook. He's a guy that's headed for some positive touchdown regression. His air yards support the premise that he's going to have a big day before long, and all the pieces are there. So I really like Westbrook today, assuming he's 100%. And it sounds like he's at least going to give it a go.
Another one, TJ Yeldon, healthy scratch that bodes well for Devin Singletary. If you wanted to play him, Cards is going to talk about him in a little bit. I think we all like him across the board, as him probably getting a significant snap share today. Kenny Stills is in. I don't like that for the Houston offense. I like what they were doing without Kenny Stills in there, but we'll have to see how that plays out. Other than that, I think that's about it. So let's go back to quarterback. I think you were talking, Justin. We'll skip over the high on plays unless you want to finish your thoughts there and talk about where, if you were fading that game or only had 1 or 2 entries and maybe you didn't want to go with 30 to 40% of the field having the same quarterback, which is going to lead you onto the same wide receivers. It's sort of the same lineup construction. Where else are you really looking today?
I'm not going here, but John's point about Aaron Rodgers and the reason he's going to be 3% owned is because nobody knows who the heck to pair Aaron Rodgers with at this point. And that's kind of the hurdle I would have as far as playing him in GPPs. You feel like you got to play him with somebody, but who? So if you want to take a shot on Rodgers with Allison or MVS, I mean, that's going to be super, super low owned today. I'll get my leverage at the other positions. I do think Daniel Jones and Kyler Murray, I mean, that game is probably there's a path to that game having a similar shootout type of performance to that Rams-Falcons game. I mean, we do have a 51-point total in New York today, and you're getting those guys at about a third of the ownership, a half to a third of the ownership of Ryan and Goff. So I think those two guys are interesting. Lamar Jackson, I think Lamar Jackson could do some things against Seattle. You look at their sack numbers and their pressure rate numbers are near the bottom of the league. So if you give Lamar Jackson time and a clean pocket, he can decide whether he wants to run or if he's got an open lane to throw. I think that gives him some intrigue today, despite the fact that it is a road game in Seattle, tough place to play, cross-country travel for Baltimore and all that. I do think that he's a fine tournament option today as well.
One guy I'm looking at, so I wanted to mention whenever I bring up the 5% owned or less that, if you are premium members, right, you read my Millionaire Maker articles. Those are always something in the super large field, right? We've been playing 200,000 person fields. Now it's 400,000 because the Millionaire Maker is $10. So if you're in that today, you generally need some form of a low ownership. And, we talk about it a lot on this show. The quickest way to the top is a low owned quarterback with, a low owned receiver and a low owned receiver on the other side, right? Just a low owned stack. You jam in all the other good plays around that. I'm looking at Matt Stafford. I think the line on this game is a little wrong. The Lions are, I don't know if Vegas still thinks they're the bad Lions team from last year, but this Lions team is actually pretty good. They throw the ball deep. You got Kenny Galladay out there. I think the corners on Minnesota aren't really that good anymore. So I like Stafford to Galladay, low owned. You can run it back with Thielen or Diggs or even Dalvin Cook pretty easily. So it creates a little bit of a game stack. And if you got sports betting, I like the Lions straight up to win this game. And I think the Lions as well, if they win, the game probably goes over because it's going to play at a pretty high pace. So if you like to dabble in the parlays, that's a nice little one to put together. And a particular 5% owned or less play I'm targeting today. Anything else at this position, John, or do you want to sort of move on? We spent a lot of time on the injuries.
Yeah, I think we've hit the high points of my list, so I'm prepared to move forward.
All right, I do like cards with Jones and Kyler Murray, and I think anyone have thoughts on Watson? Watson at 5% owned seems a little low, or is it just because of the price?
I think it's the price, and you can get those quarterbacks we led off with for a cheaper amount, and his receivers haven't been doing him any favors recently either. I think they've dropped about 6 touchdown passes in the past 2 weeks. So I don't know. I think the matchup for me is tough. I think the Colts are a little better than people are giving them credit for, playing there in Indianapolis. We'll see what happens, but I think the Colts win this one, and it's probably not as high scoring as we suspect it could be.
I want to note too, Xavier Howard is out for the Dolphins. And I want to give you guys a quick little thought on what I did. I had Dalvin Cook and Alan Lazard in my DraftKings cash game. I have gone to Devontae Freeman and John Brown as basically a salary swap in that specific option there, just to kind of give you a little inkling on what I might be doing today. Let's go to running backs. Cards, I'll go to you. Leonard Fournette. He started off, no one really wanted to use him this year, and now everybody's going to be using him, mainly because DraftKings, I think, did a pretty poor job of pricing him. He's an 8K back if you look at a lot of the advanced stuff, and that's leading to 40% ownership. One of the tougher fades, even in a 400,000 person tournament like the Millionaire Maker, is the high-owned workhorse running back in a nut matchup. That's exactly what he has today. How are you dealing with him in tournaments?
Yeah, it sounds like John is fading him, and that's quite the leg to stand on today. Immense leverage if you do that, and he sort of busts or gets hurt. But if you do look at our contrarian ratings on the side there, nobody has a lower number than Fournette because of that ownership being so high. So I'm not fading him. I am going a little bit underweight on him. I set him at 20 to 25 in my GPP pool. So, I'm 55, 60% of what the field is on Fournette. And then, overweight on some of those next few guys. I think, if you're playing that Atlanta Rams game stack angle, if you're using Jared Goff, if you're using his receivers and you think the Rams might fall behind, that adds to Devontae Freeman's appeal, or vice versa. If you play it the other way and you want to play a Gurley or a super low-owned Henderson, I think you can certainly do that. The question, I think, and when it was the beginning of the week, we had Kerryon Johnson upwards of 30, 35%. Now that Kamara's been ruled out, we've got Latavius Murray checking into the mix as well, basically at the same price there. as Kerryon Johnson. And we know that Latavius Murray can fall into the end zone. He's probably going to get a good chunk of the carries today, but that's a tough matchup in Chicago. And it's really close between those two guys. They should both get a lot of work today, but I'm surprised that, Kerryon's ownership has basically gone split, even with Murray here as we get later in the week.
John, what are you doing? Card says you're fading it. Is that true? Are you really on
I'm not trying to put words in your mouth.
Are you on the Leonard Fournette fade?
I was letting you finish. I'm fading him, but I'm at basically a little bit less than half the field. So it's not a complete fade. About 1 out of 6 of my lineups will have Leonard Fournette. But I think that's enough of an advantage for me. That's, if he does completely flub up, or if Gardner Minshew throws a pair of touchdowns to D.D. Westbrook, then I'm going to be just fine. The matchup is great, but the matchup is great for Gardner Minshew as well. So, I think that there are equal ways that they can win this game. And Fournette at 40%. This guy has disappointed one week after the other. Last year, the guy, he couldn't play, his hamstring. There are all sorts of reasons to get away from Fournette. It's one of the easier fades that I've made over the time of playing DFS. Now, in 4 hours, I might be singing a different tune, but I think it's pretty easy to do when he's 40%, and there are other running backs I like just as much.
I like Fournette. I don't know if 40%. What do you have over at Football Guys? Is a 40% ish right? I think it could even approach maybe even a little bit higher. It's just he's been the talk of that. Anything you have read on the internet or a podcast or anything you've listened to has Fournette. Now we also saw Mark Ingram, though, the millionaire maker. People love playing Mark Ingram, so you never really know what's going to happen in there. But in things like the slant and the higher buy-in stuff, he's easily going to be 50% in my opinion.
Yeah, look, it's a fair play, right? Last week, 26 touches. The week before, 27, 31, 21, 19, 17. The guy's guaranteed to almost get 20-plus touches, so I understand where the love's coming from. And to answer your question, we have him at 41% on Football Guys. So he's going to be in 4 out of 10 rosters. Is he 41% likely to score 28 points today? And I'm going to say no. It's a hard no. It's an easy no.
And when the guys get super high ownership, they really have to smash to show up in the winning lineups on the millionaire maker and stuff like that. The next tier, the Carson Barkley Cook tier, I think with the loss of Lazard, going from probably 20% to sub 10%, we just lose a lot of value. And I think that's going to take some Barkley and Cook out of lineups. Justin, do I think that's like the first place people are going to cut to get some more salary?
Yeah, it probably is. You're going to see people go from Barkley to Kerryon or something like that. Yeah. Save $3K, and then you can go up from you can get like
John Brown or Tyler Boyd or one of those type of receivers in there.
And queue up even more ownership for T.Y. Hilton now.
Yep.
It's an easy switch to go from Cook or Barkley down to Kerryon or one of those 5K guys. There's 4 of them right in a row there. Pick your favorite.
You keep mentioning Kerryon. So there's a couple guys here: Devontae Freeman, Kerryon, Josh Jacobs. He's been game script dependent, but I'm not convinced that holds, and I like him. Tevin Coleman. There's a lot.
I really like Coleman today. I think Coleman at 6, 7. He's up to 8 now. He was 6% earlier in the week. You look at the numbers for San Francisco last week. Coleman had 6 carries and 1 target in the red zone. Matt Breida did not have any. Coleman's touched the ball 20 times. And he might not play 75 or 80% of the snaps. But given how much San Francisco runs the football, they run the ball more than any other team in the NFL. Even if he's only playing on 60% of the snaps, he's going to get just as many touches as other guys who are playing on 70 to 80% of the snaps. And the sledding should come much easier against Washington as a 10-point favorite than it did last week against the Rams. So in terms of GPP pivots in that price range, Tevin Coleman's my guy in there today.
Yeah, I like Coleman. I think you can make a case. Is this where you're going with your Leonard Fournette ownership, John? Are you taking that and are you putting it into Carson, into Cook, into Barkley, or are you saving even more money and going in the Devontae Freeman to Josh Jacobs type range?
Well, I've got the Josh Jacobs take. I think we're in lockstep on that, you and me, Britt. Over that, I've got Coleman. Coleman was one of the guys that called out my article this week. I think Marlon Mack is a guy that we should talk about because as we're talking about ownership on Leonard Fournette, we're going to talk about T.Y. Hilton in just a bit and what leverage we might be able to get from a GPP perspective, going with Marlon Mack at home against the Texans. But really where the bulk of my ownership overweight this week is going to be with Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley practiced in full. I know he's expensive, but I think that there are ways you can do it. I think at the top end of the wide receiver echelon this week, outside of Cooper Kupp above 7,000, I don't love any of those guys. I think Michael Thomas is interesting in his ownership. We'll talk about this position next. But if you're spending up this week, Saquon Barkley, 8,900 against the fastest team in the NFL, the one that doesn't have a secondary, one that doesn't have a front seven for what it's worth, and he's only 20% owned. I mean, who's the better running back, Saquon Barkley or Leonard Fournette? And I mean that should be your answer right there. 40% versus 20%. I'll take Saquon all day long.
One guy, another one of those 5% owned or less cards, got one too at running back, is David Johnson. I mentioned last week on the edges. Hey, don't forget about David Johnson. Now, I also said don't forget about Alvin Kamara, right? So there's the good with the bad on that one, but David Johnson worked out. When you get these guys with injury concerns, David Johnson, he's, I think it was on one of the shows earlier today. He's a wide receiver who gets goal line carries. I mean, it's an absolutely nut spot for him today. Even if he's playing 70% of the snaps or something like that, David Johnson can be a guy who at low ownership can lead you to victory today. So he would be one of my 5-ish% owned or less players if you're looking to differentiate yourself in the super large field tournaments. I wanted to talk about cards. You got another running back as well, and his matchup looks pretty juicy.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's uncomfortable to target the Buffalo running game because we don't know what the usage is going to be. But Buffalo's ownership as a whole is not going to be super high today. Josh Allen's going to be around 10. John Brown will get some ownership, but nobody wants to play the running backs with Devin Singletary back in the mix. I mean, they're facing Miami. I'm not sure it matters how often guys are playing. If you're going to get the ball 10 or 12 times against a team that's tanking games, and you give me Singletary at 2% ownership today, I mean, I think you got to have him in your multi-entry pool for sure.
John, what do you have Singletary? I'll take the over on 2%, but probably the under on like 6 or 7%.
We've got Singletary at, drum roll, 3% is what we have.
I think maybe it creeps up just a little bit higher because that TJ Yeldon news signals that Singletary's ready. They gave him the extra week off last week, basically. He wanted to play, but they said no. This is against the Dolphins. If he gets back to that 66% snap share from week 1 when he's super explosive, absolute nut spot for him. Love that call cards as a low-owned play. Anything else, John, at running back? I don't mind Mixon 5K. I know it's tough, but the Jacksonville run D is atrocious.
Yeah, I actually called out Joe Mixon as one of my in my model. But basically what I do is I have an algorithm that I enter in all my projections where I'm going to land in relation to the field, and then it spits out a star rating that I include in my article. And believe it or not, I was actually surprised. Joe Mixon's my number one guy. I'm not sure in my gut he's my number one guy. I've already talked about Saquon, but in terms of what the algorithm said, it's Joe Mixon. And for the reasons you said, I mean, Jacksonville, the way to beat them is on the ground. And Mixon's a guy that continues to get good usage. He hasn't looked good behind that offensive line to this point in the season, but they're not getting away from him. And I think at what, 5%? Is that what you guys are showing?
Mm-hmm. We've got 3% on Mixon.
So even better. I've got him at about 15%. So if he goes off, I'll be quite happy.
Yeah, it's a good leverage spot, I think, in my opinion, too. Let's move to wide receiver cards. I'll start with you. I think the ownership, let's see, has Jamino changed it? It looks like he has. So he's on top of the Alan Lazard. He has dropped. I don't even see him on the front page here, which is probably something I would agree with as well. So we've got the T.Y. Hilton chalk week. He's traded the Andrew Luck ADOT down the field for the Jacoby Brissett end zone, targets. I think the ADOT's a little more sustainable than constantly being the only guy who gets the red zone touchdown looks. This is some pretty high ownership. There's some ways he fails if you don't play Hilton. I think playing a guy like Marlon Mack makes a little bit of sense in some tournament teams. The higher ownership on him, and now I'm playing him in cash. I like T.Y. Hilton, but he seems to be the one for sure that I have no problem being a little underweight on. The news cycle on him has absolutely been beaten to death this week as well.
Well, if you haven't heard, he's had some pretty good games against the Texans.
I have no idea what
past.
You're talking
about. So that's it's a fascinating discussion because you can talk about, well, the personnel changes over the course of a couple years, et cetera. But I think there are some ancillary factors that make this discussion even more interesting. Houston's banged up in the secondary, so that's one. Indianapolis is coming off a bye week, which I do think is a factor at this time of year. An extra week to prepare. The other team's banged up. I think that adds to the appeal. So what I am doing in lineups where I feel like I want to play T.Y. Hilton is I'm playing some Jacoby Brissett as well. I mean, he's going to be 1% owned. We didn't even mention him at quarterback. But as a way to get additional leverage, if Brissett has a 300-yard, 3-touchdown game, which probably isn't the most likely outcome today, then I get a little bit more of that bang for the buck with that production. Or if you want to get really interesting and fade or go underweight on T.Y. Hilton, then play some Marlon Mack at running back. I mean, John mentioned that he kind of thinks that Indianapolis wins this game. I tend to agree. At home, you look at the odds. It's basically I think Indy might be a small favorite now. So, and everyone's going to think that, well, Houston's a better team. I think Vegas is showing some love for the Colts today, and I think you play it. You can play it a number of different ways. You can eat the Hilton chalk. You can pair him with Brissett. You can play Marlon Mack and go underweight on Hilton. I understand the logic kind of behind all that today, but there are plenty of pivots. I mean, even in this price range, I've soured on Julio a little bit with the Rams getting Jalen Ramsey. So I've liked Ridley a lot throughout the week. His ownership has come up as well and will probably continue to trend higher with us losing some value in that wide receiver pool today. But Ridley's a guy that I'm overweight on Ridley and underweight on Julio.
And I want to repeat, some of you guys in chat didn't know, so maybe some of you watching, Lazard's still playing, but both Marquez Valdes-Scantling and Geronimo Allison are now active for the Patriots, which has dropped Lazard down to projected ownership of 2.5%. That's too low. There'll be too many stubborn people and too many set it and forget it's. He will be higher than 2.5% owned, but I think that ownership should be about what he should be owned, if that makes any sense. John, what are you doing at the top? Me and you, we always kind of preach fade the highest owned wide receivers. Something like 80% of them, of the top 3 highest owned every week, have busted. And I give a pretty generous bust rate at wide receiver, so that's pretty bad. It's up from last year. I think teams are spreading the ball out. Julio only has a 21% target share in the year, which is absolutely insane. A big drop from last year. They're just spreading the ball around too much. I think by easily, I would probably be underweight T.Y. Hilton. I'd probably be underweight Julio, and I would try to find a couple other receivers that I like instead.
Yeah, looking at your list, I think I've already talked about T.Y. in the running back section and how I want to leverage Marlon Mack to get away from T.Y.
I love that.
It makes a lot of sense to me. I do have a lot of exposure to Jared Goff, as I led off with. So from that end, I don't have quite as much cup as what you're showing here at 25%, but I would be disingenuous if I didn't say I wasn't heavy on the Rams receivers, because one drives the other, of course. Agree with you on Julio Jones. I think Ridley is the smarter, sharper take there. He has 2 touchdown upside. Certainly Julio does as well, but I'll take the discount and the lower ownership with Ridley and hope for the best. John Brown's an interesting one. He's a guy, hamstring issues. He's almost reminds me of Leonard Fournette. He's the Leonard Fournette of the wide receiver position, in that he's got immense talent, but the guy it seems like he's always hurt, and he's interesting today. I'm not suggesting that you fade him the way that I suggested you fade him with or fade Fournette, but I don't know that he's worthy of 18%. I think if I'm going to do something with the passing game, I think I might rather have some of the other ancillary Buffalo receivers because I think that they're going to be highly involved. Duke Williams looked really good in his debut last week, replacing Zay Jones, who was traded to the Raiders. More on him later. And Cole Beasley is a guy that continues to be kind of an integral part of this
By the way,
offense.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but he's inactive. Zay Jones.
Oh, Beasley is inactive?
No, Zay Jones is inactive.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So that's the more on him later.
That's
apparently.
the more on him later. Don't blame him.
You surprised me with the Cole. I thought Cole Beasley, why would he be inactive? But Beasley is a guy that he continues to be used heavily in the offense, but he hasn't found the end zone yet. And I think he's slated for some positive touchdown regression. So with those things in mind, I think those are good reasons to get a little bit underweight on John Brown and hope he doesn't break that 80-yard touchdown that everybody's hoping for. Of the options that you're looking at, you just were on the guy. DK Metcalf was my poster boy for tips and picks this week, which is the article I write over on Football Guys. I absolutely love DK Metcalf this week, going against Justin's Ravens. Last week I whiffed, took a big whiff on Tyler Boyd. I thought he had a great matchup and then dug into what happened to him. One catch. He just got shut down by Marlon Humphrey in shadow coverage. Then I went back to look at what Humphrey's done this season, and he shut down some pretty good receivers. Shut down Sammy Watkins, and of course, again, I want to pull it up in real time. But he's really nixed some excellent receivers: T.Y. Hilton, Tyler Boyd, and some other Odell Beckham, as well as Sammy Watkins, Tyler Boyd. These are all decent receivers, and he's going to go up against Tyler Lockett this week. I think Tyler Lockett has a disappointing game, and I think that DK Metcalf is the beneficiary of that. And I have him currently at almost 30% of my rosters. I think he's as close to a guaranteed score today as I have in my player portfolio.
Yeah, I like DK. Disley out. He was already getting all the end zone work anyway, so I think Metcalf is a pretty good play. I want to go down here. I mentioned I like Matt Stafford, so of course I like Kenny Golladay as a nice stack. I think Golladay is pretty playable in just about any format. That 5 to 6K wide receiver. Not only do we have T.Y. Hilton, but I think a lot of people are going to be pivoting from Lazard to one of them. So the John Brown, the Kenny Golladay, the Calvin Ridley, the DJ Shark, the DK Metcalf, these guys are going to get all that Lazard ownership, in my opinion. So I understand why they sort of have jumped up the board here. But don't sleep on Kenny Golladay. DeAndre Hopkins, Will Fuller, right? If these guys caught all their touchdowns, they'd be twice as owned as they are this week. So don't forget about them. I know Indianapolis prevents big plays, but I mean, it's DeAndre Hopkins and it's Will Fuller, and that's what they do. So don't be scared from that type of stuff either. And if you're playing Watson, some pretty easy stacks to make with them. We've got a couple of lowish owned wide receivers you want to talk about, sub 5% ownership. Scratch off Zay Jones, so he's not on there, John. You talked a little bit about Dede. Give me 30 seconds. I'll throw it over to Cards for his guy too.
Yeah, the Dede Westbrook thing is, again, it's just leverage against Leonard Fournette, fading him. It's the opposite of what I've described with fading T.Y. Hilton and going with Marlon Mack. The thought is that if the offense scores and Vegas is right, that it's going to have to go through an opposite channel. And Dede Westbrook, in terms of air yard models, he's a guy that's looking for positive regression in terms of scoring. Shark is the more expensive guy. He's the higher owned guy. And so just it's a lot of leverage that feeds into that vantage point on Dede Westbrook. And then I think, I talked about Zay Jones. He was one of the guys I was looking at. I love his ADOTs. There was a lot of rationale that went into getting at Zay Jones this week, but Cards, he pissed him.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to spoil your fun, but I figured you might want to know.
No, I'm glad, because that's 8% of rosters that would have been dead on arrival. But I think that does make a tight end there in Oakland even more attractive than what I initially liked.
Yeah.
If
Can we reconfigure the Zay Jones love with a revenge game Trevor Davis narrative?
Probably not.
No, I can't go that far.
We're not going to do that.
You can go on record there.
Cards, you want to play the squeaky wheel narrative, the tweet at your, hey, the Chargers they always lose these games, and Keenan Allen comes out and, says some mean words about that on Twitter because he's frustrated, and the squeaky wheel has worked a couple of times this year, and you're interested in going to
Yeah, Keenan Allen was not happy after the Sunday night game when the Chargers, for the 3,460th time, had a game where they were favored, fell behind by 3 scores, made it interesting, and lost by 1 score. It has happened far more times than they probably care to admit. And somebody posted that on Twitter, and Keenan Allen, quote tweeted it and said, "So bad," or and then he proceeded to.
I know what he said. It wasn't that. It was a little worse than that. I can't say it on the air.
I know. Yeah, it's a family show. It's free today too, so we got to keep it clean. Yes. But he wasn't quite Antonio Brown level mad, but he was he was unhappy on social media. And this is more of a point of 4 weeks ago, we all wanted to play Keenan Allen at $8,000, and he was like 40% owned against the Dolphins, and now he's 4% owned against Tennessee in a game that nobody probably cares to watch. I mean, Tennessee is throwing Ryan Tannehill out there. The Chargers offense has been horrendous. Nobody has probably seen their long-term stock drop more over the last 2 months than Melvin Gordon, who basically saw Austin Eckler replace him, and then Gordon comes back and he's averaging 2.5 yards a carry. But Keenan Allen at 4%, when everyone's going to play Hunter Henry because he was fantastic in his return last week. You've got other tight ends. This is getting the cart ahead of the horse a little bit, but Waller, who John just mentioned, and, there's other tight ends in that same price range as Henry. I think with Keenan Allen at 4%, this is a week where you can buy back in GPPs.
All right. Yeah, I like that one. Let's move to John. Anything else at wide receiver you really want to talk about? There's always good plays that you can find at low ownership. Should be probably, it's always tough because wide receivers, if, you're theoretically stacking, 4-man stack, you've run out of wide receivers and some of those, but don't be afraid to play a wide receiver in the flex sometimes. And if you can find a low-owned one that has a good day, specifically with a low-owned quarterback, you're rocketing up the standings in those cases. So, John, final thoughts?
I throw just 2 sentences. Christian Kirk is inactive. I think that Larry Fitzgerald's ownership is probably not reflecting the fact that Kirk was scratched overnight. I think that at 11%, at least that's where we have him. That's probably too low, given that he'll have the slot to himself today in what could be an underrated shootout.
All right, let's go to tight end, and you really don't want to kind of veer away from the known quantities, I think, today. The Mark Andrews, Hunter Henry, Evan Ingram, Austin Hooper, Darren Waller, George Kittle. I really don't even see myself making a lineup without one of those tight ends today. Does anyone have a take other than that? I know John had, a tight end take. I'm not sure if his thoughts changed with how the Green Bay wide receiver situation has kind of played out today, but I'm really just playing the known quantities at tight end today.
I think that, the top, 6 guys in terms of price, those are the ones that you want to be playing. I have a few darts in the mix with guys like Dawson Knox and Mike Gesicki, but we're talking a few percentages just in, some off events. Gesicki, nobody's going to have him. It's going to be in a game stack if they're in Buffalo, if they go off, because Fitzpatrick he's established a rapport with Gesicki in the past. Maybe that happens and you get a little salary relief, but it's not a strong take. I think that the way to go today is by spending up at tight end. I'm going to come off of Graham a little bit to answer your question. I had him at 15%. I'm going to come down a little bit because I think now those Aaron Rodgers passes, they get distributed a bit more between MVS and Geronimo Allison. But I'll still be heavily overweight on him at 3% if that's where he goes off.
John, you got a lot of work to do after the show, so I wish you the best of luck in the time crunch. Cards, what are you doing at tight end here? So we've got the Evan Ingram flow chart. The problem is, he's priced appropriately at $6,500. I think that's a correct price for Evan Ingram. Where I don't think we have correct pricing on Austin Hooper, Darren Waller, Hunter Henry, or Mark Andrews. So I think all those guys are $300 to $700, maybe even $1,000 too cheap, given, specifically Hunter Henry. So how are we playing Evan Ingram? There's no Sterling Shepard. Evan Ingram is active today at 6,500, and without Lazard in there, I'm taking Lazard out of my lineups because of both of the MVS and Allison being active. I'm now starving for value, which is really pushing me towards Hunter Henry and Darren Waller, I think, a little bit more.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'll be a little underweight on Henry for the reason I just mentioned, that I'm playing some Keenan Allen. But at 4K, I mean, I'm not going to argue against it. I like Waller a lot. I mean, who else is Oakland going to throw the ball to today? You look at, Zay Jones being a surprising inactive. Williams is out. So they are rolling with some combination of Trevor Davis, who you guys just threw under the bus, and Hunter Renfrow, who, I mean, I don't think he has scored a touchdown since maybe his sophomore year in college. He's just not a big play guy. So, I mean, all those red zone looks should, in theory, go to Waller. I mean, I think Waller's a great option today. I've upgraded him with all the news, and especially if you're looking for some value. He's 700 more than Henry. I'll try to fit that in a few more lineups.
Any of your other sleepers, John? It's just I don't see. I want to tell you not to play Mike Gesicki and waste your money on the lineups, John. I really think these are the good plays are the good plays for a reason. And I know in theory, right, we've always wanted to be contrarian at tight end, but I think that theory is probably not correct, at least this week or even this year in DFS.
I think tight end has been an interesting, probably the biggest evolution of any position this year that we've seen. Because you're right, it's been these high-owned, high-dollar tight ends that just are more integral in terms of their offense than what we've seen in years past. And I'm not out there. I'm not suggesting anybody play Mike Gesicki. He's going to be in 3% of my tournament rosters, and if he goes off, you'll remember that I said it, and if he doesn't, you can make fun of me for throwing away what amounts to 3% of my money.
All right, your $30 is down the drain, John. We'll let that slide. All right, we'll touch on defense really quick. We saw the Jets last week; they were projected, at like 7% earlier in the week. They got bumped up to 9 on Sunday. They ended up being like almost 20% owned in the Millionaire Maker. We're running, we've got the haves and the have-nots, I guess, salary-wise at the defensive position. We've got the Bills, who I think their ownership might creep down just a little bit because, again, I think the smart people will move away from Lazard, and you have to start saving salary because you don't have the minimum price wide receiver anymore. And more people might end up moving to the Colts or a 2K at home against Houston. And we know Watson and that offensive line, he'll take some sacks every now and then. That's all we're really playing for. So Cards, I'll go to you first. Would you rather spend on the Bills and I think get a pretty safe, you're probably going to end with at least as many points as you start with the Bills at 10 with obvious upside for more, or would you be a little more risky, save 2,300 and spread that throughout your lineup with the Colts?
Yeah, I don't mind the Colts. It surprises me that they've gotten that high of ownership, I guess, since, people played the Jets last week and everyone's looking for that 2K salary saver. In GPPs, I'm maybe more apt to go to like 3K because everyone's going to do that either, really high or really low strategy. You go to maybe the Bears or the Saints in what could be, a defensive struggle. That Titans-Chargers game has a Vegas total of 40. The Titans' last 2 games have had, I think, 37 points total. I mean, that offense is a mess, but their defense isn't horrible. So they're at 32 and 3,100. I mean, those are teams I would put into my GPP player pool. I've got no issue, obviously, with Buffalo or San Francisco if you're spending up, but the cheap defenses over the course of this, or the chalky defenses over the course of a season, we know there's variance at that position.
John, do you have a take on, either one of those defenses? And if not, where would you be trying to, differentiate yourself from the field?
Yeah, I mean, I think the defense that I'm going to be heaviest on is the Bills for reasons I think we all would agree with. I think the Niners are interesting, by the way. They're just a notch below, so they're not getting, if you've got $4,000 to spend, you're like, well, figure out how to do it with the Bills going against Miami. But the Niners are, arguably the best defense in the league, and they're taking on Case Keenum and a bunch of no names there in Washington who are flying high, coming off a victory to a victory against the Dolphins. Am I freezing, or are you guys?
I think it was me. So
okay, sorry, I got distracted. I got a new setup today, so I wanted to make sure I wasn't just talking to nobody. So the 49ers, I think, are interesting. They'll be my second highest. I think the Colts are interesting down there at 2K. And aside from that, every other team I'm looking at the list, it's like 3%, 4%, 6%. And I think, with the highly variable nature of scoring with team defense position, if you've got 10 lineups, none of them, or let me rephrase, you should have no more than 2 with the same team defense for all the reasons that we've talked about over the past.
Yeah, I think that's fine. The Chargers, they, against the Steelers, I thought they were going to be halfway decent, but Tennessee, it's Ryan Tannehill, right? You don't really know what you're going to get there. Getting in mixed into that, I don't hate that as a dart throw. I like the Bears. I like the Saints. I think you could play the Titans too. The Chargers are good to Charger sometimes. I think we know that's a legitimate thing too. So don't be afraid to mix it up, and a low ownership. You got any of these 1% crappers cards do anything for you? I don't see much here.
Really. I mean, John, if you're fading Fournette and you got enough stones to roll the Bengals defense in a few lineups.
No, I don't think that's going to happen.
No chance.
That's not happening.
Let's move to over-unders. This is a segment where we give some guys we're specifically, trying to be overweight on or underweight on in tournaments. A couple for me would be Matt Stafford. It doesn't take a lot. If you're playing 50 lineups and you have 2 Matt Stafford teams, guess what? You're overweight the field. It doesn't really take a lot. You can pair him up with Kenny Galladay. I like Adam Thielen or Dalvin Cook as the run it back. I am not on TJ Hawkinson today. The Vikings have shut down Zach Ertz and Evan Ingram in back-to-back weeks. I'm not too interested in TJ Hawkinson today. I think Joe Mixon, again, John mentioned he's 3% projected ownership. John had him up to 15%. I think that's perfectly fine. 5K, get you some leverage. We know the Bengals defense is trash. Well, that Jacksonville defense, they're last in DVOA against running backs as well. So you can take a look at that. I like David Johnson as a low-owned play too. These are all guys. It doesn't take many clicks of a button to be overweight on them, and I think you're going to have some reasonably good winners in there. DK Metcalf, I mentioned Kenny Galladay, and I think I'm starting to get a little overweight on the John Browns, the Calvin Ridleys, that 5 to 6K tier at wide receiver, because that's where the money that you lose money from one of the expensive running backs and you pay up to that mid-tier at wide receiver, I think is the logical swerve if you were playing Lazard before. So those are some of the guys, and I would be completely underweight Lazard, 0% Lazard shares for me at the moment. I'll go to John for some of his plays as well.
Overweights, Jared Goff, Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be super sharp. I'll say that again. If you're making lineups after the show, get some stacks with him.
Who are you pairing him with primarily, or planning to?
I think Jimmy Graham's still in play. I would go Jimmy Graham, Geronimo, and then MVS, with MVS being he's my favorite receiver of the bunch, but I think he's the one most likely to re-injure or aggravate his injury. So that's where I'm at right now. But as Britt has pointed out, I've got 40 minutes here to get this all straight.
Anything you have now is not going to be what you end up with. I can almost guarantee that.
Yes, you're 100% correct. So Saquon, favorite running back of the week, overweight on him. Marlon Mack, Tevin Coleman. I think we've talked about that, and it sounds like all three of us kind of agree with that. Rams wide receivers, DK Metcalf, my favorite wide receiver on the week, and I'm overweight on George Kittle and Evan Ingram, although I may come down a little bit on Ingram to get some more Waller now that I know that Zay Jones is in.
Are you going to play any Lazard, John?
If I have Lazard, it will be less than 5% of my GPP lineups. I'm leaning towards no, though.
All right, cards, Lazard, yes or no?
No, 0. I had not exported any of my lineups from Lineup HQ before we started the show, so it was easy enough to X them out and then rebuild. So going to have to mess with my value exposures just a little bit to get the percentages that I want. But overweight, otherwise, Rams passing game. I've already mentioned that I've got Brissett on some of my Hilton teams. Matt Ryan, primarily with Calvin Ridley. Carson, I'm overweight on because I've kind of come to throughout the week being a little bit underweight on Fournette. So Carson and Tevin Coleman is the running back that on a percentage basis I'm probably most overweight on this week, with in tandem with the 49ers defense on some lineups. Underweight on Julio Jones with the Ramsey news, Tyler Lockett with the Marlon Humphrey shadow coverage, as John kind of alluded to earlier in the show. And Mark Ingram, I was really surprised when I dug into Baltimore's numbers from last week. He lost quite a few snaps to Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, and I did not see any report of an injury throughout that game. So Mark Ingram, his ownership is still relatively high, comparatively speaking, and I don't have much interest in him today.
Yeah,
So
the public loves themselves some Mark Ingram.
I'm not sure what that is all about. So
at least in the Millionaire Maker,
yes.
If you watch the ownership show, that's another premium one. Just the Millionaire Maker had Mark Ingram going through the roof. Where literally every other contest, it was normal ownership for Mark Ingram. So I don't understand what happened there. I don't know if someone just like all in Mark Ingram and like a couple of the 150ers did that, but. Very, very strange, at least in the Millionaire Maker. All right, let's get to some stacks. I've got a couple. I'll lead off. I'm going to start with the Lamar Jackson to Mark Andrews to DK Metcalf without playing Tyler Lockett. And I think you could also include, if you didn't want to play Metcalf, Carson, there's game scripts, right, where Carson has 110 and 2 touchdowns and Lamar Jackson's got to throw the ball. It's pretty much all going to Mark Andrews. I would be avoiding Tyler Lockett in that specific scenario today. You can do the Bills onslaught, Josh Allen, Devin Singletary, John Brown, Bills defense. There's very few times you can do something like that, but I think that's an actual reasonable tournament lineup construction today. I don't think you have to run it back with anybody from Miami if you want to. And of course, stack up the Atlanta Rams game. I don't want to say not to. Just know that many of your opponents will do the same thing. Try to get creative. If you play Matt Ryan to Kelvin Ridley with Austin Hooper and you run it back with Cooper Kupp, even a 4-man game stack in a 400,000 person tournament like the Millionaire Maker, you are still fighting probably 500-ish lineups with that exact game stack, if not even higher, I think, today, just with those specific players. So try to get a little weird somewhere and make sure you insert some low ownership if you're clicking buttons in physically and not using something like Lineup HQ to sort of limit that mathematically. Those are kind of some of the stacks I like today. John, what are you looking at?
I think my favorite stack, not surprising, Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf. I think that this, there's some interesting ways you can use that Giants-Arizona game. I'm going to have a lot of Atlanta and Rams game stacks, but I think that Giants and Arizona game is equally stackable. I like Daniel Jones. You can get Saquon in there because he catches the ball just as much. There's no Sterling Shepard, so maybe he's used even more as a receiver. And you can even pile on Evan Ingram or Darius Slater as kind of, Slater being low owned, Ingram being high upside, and then run it back with DJ or Fitz, because that's largely where all the action is going to come from on the other side. And then I do like, as a cheap, more contrarian option, doing like a Josh Allen to Cole Beasley and running it back with Kenyon Drake. Kenyon Drake's super cheap. We didn't talk about him, but I think he's a nice contrarian option who at, I think, 4% ownership. They fall behind in that game. The way to beat Buffalo, and not that they're going to beat them, but the way to beat Buffalo is on the ground. So I suspect Kenyon Drake's going to see more action than a lot of us might otherwise suspect. So those are kind of some contrarian high upside stacks that I like this week.
The Drake, right? What's that? Yes. The Seinfeld bit?
It is. Yeah.
Cards, what do you got for me? I think you're on mute,
buddy.
I did it again 2 times today. All right.
Hey,
so
it's free today. You don't have to worry about it.
I didn't want to curse on the air. So I agree on obviously the Rams in Atlanta and Arizona, New York Giants. Those are the 2 games I'm kind of honing in on today. Josh Allen, John Brown, and Brissett and Hilton. I mean, if you're just looking quarterback receiver pairings, those 2 will be fairly popular. But I really like the Tevin Coleman San Francisco defense combo today. I think that's a good one to go to, and I will keep it brief. I know we're short on time at this point. So
yeah, I am all aboard that Tevin Coleman San Francisco defense. I think that's a really low owned stack to play. So I like that one. We're gonna get. Normally we do our edge. I think we're gonna pass that today. I want to let all you guys know. Stay tuned. Right, crunch time's free today. So if you have questions, right, crunch time, we try to talk all sorts of tournament stuff. Crunch time is where you get questions. So if you have them, get into the premium chat, start posting some QQs or start thinking about what you want to ask them, and they will probably be extremely overwhelmed during that show with all the free viewers watching. So make sure to stay tuned to that, and you'll get some advice from some really smart minds answering your questions in real time towards the end of it. We're going to get on out of here. John, good luck with all the buttons you got to click. Cards, have fun. I'm going to go swap out all my Lazard and Lineup HQ as well. So have fun out there, guys. Thanks for watching and tuning in. If you're free members, let me know what you think. DM's always open. RotoGrinders Twitter. If you like the show, let me know what you thought about it. And if you like this, there's a lot more than just this that gets included on RotoGrinders Premium. So have fun out there, and good luck, everybody. We out ya.
What's up, guys? Beer here back in the Fantasy Bar. 6 of my favorite plays for you on Draftkings and Fanduel for Week 7, including some cheap wide receivers. One that has destroyed his opponent over the course of his career. A couple workhorse running backs for you. And, of course, my favorite play on the week. Who are we talking about? Belly up to the Fantasy Bar and find out. Welcome in, guys. Week 7 edition Beers Daily Fantasy 6-pack. The Fantasy Bar ready to rock with 6 guys fresh off the tap for you here in Week 7 on FanDuel and DraftKings. Thank you for stopping by and checking out the video. Before we get into this week's plays, let's take a look and see how we did last week in Week 6. It was a pretty solid week here in the Fantasy Bar. We'll start with Julio Jones, 21.8 on DraftKings, 14.8 on FanDuel. Solid day for Julio. Obviously shows you the difference here between the sites. DraftKings, that PPR really makes a difference. FanDuel, you really need those touchdowns, and not finding the end zone kind of hurt Julio Jones there. But all around, solid day there. Chris Carson, big hit for us here, 28.9 on DraftKings, 23.9 on FanDuel. Continues to get a ton of work. Don't be afraid to continue riding the back of Chris Carson here of Seattle. George Kittle was next, 21 on FanDuel, or 21 on DraftKings. 14 on FanDuel. Again, the importance of PPR on DraftKings. Solid day there. FanDuel, we needed that touchdown. Didn't get there, but not a disappointment here with George Kittle. Pretty solid day. The hit of the week for sure, Stephon Diggs. Over 40 on both sites here. Huge day for Minnesota. That Philadelphia secondary, one we can certainly pick on. And the mistake was not pairing him more with Kirk Cousins, who had a big day. Gardner Minshew, definitely a big disappointment here. They broke out the mustaches down there in Jacksonville. Just didn't pan out. That New Orleans defense looks to be for real here. One of the better defenses in the league. So disappointing day for Minshew, no doubt. And then Le'Veon Bell, very disappointing. Got a touchdown. Only one target in that game. So we'll see if that continues with Sam Darnold. Was it just a one-off? But if Le'Veon Bell's not going to be involved in the passing game as much as he has been earlier in the season, that's going to be a problem. So I'm still going to keep an eye on that. Le'Veon Bell definitely disappointed. But all in all, solid day here for the 6-pack. Now let's move on to Week 7. And we're going to go right back to a guy that was good to us last week. Has another good matchup here. And that's running back Chris Carson to lead us off here of the Seahawks. So very fair prices here once again on Chris Carson. $6,500 on DK, $7,600 on FanDuel. So you're not breaking the bank here. I think it's a great price point, and the workload has just been out of control. 28 touches in each of the last 2 games, getting more and more involved in the passing game here for Seattle. And this Baltimore defense, let's be honest, just not a very good defense. 22nd in total DVOA, 18th against the run. They've been giving up some big games, especially to a guy like Nick Chubb. Had a huge game against this team. They faced some teams where they held them down. Those were teams that don't have very good running backs. Carson at home, great spot here against Baltimore. Going to plug him right back in the lineups here in Week 7. All right, let's go to the wide receiver position. Next pick for us, T.Y. Hilton of the Colts. So $5,900 on DraftKings really jumped off the page to me. $7,600 on FanDuel is about where he should be. So the value here is more so on DraftKings. But let's look at the matchup here. Houston, 8th most fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position. That's why you hear them involved in trade talks for Jalen Ramsey and any other cornerback that's on the market. They're just not good in that secondary. I think Hilton can definitely take advantage of that, and he has over the course of his career. Hilton has played the Texans 15 times and has scored 9 touchdowns in those 15 career games, 78 receiving yards in 11 of those 15 games. So it's just a matchup. Every time these two teams play, T.Y. Hilton seems to have a big game. Neither of these defenses very good. I don't think they're going to be able to hold T.Y. Hilton down. Big game incoming. DraftKings, they steal at only 5,900. All right, let's move on to the tight end position next. We're going to roll with Evan Ingram of the Giants. So Ingram sat out that game against New England, but I'm really expecting him back in the lineup here. Has 10 days to get ready for this game, and I think you're going to see him out there. And we know Arizona, terrible against tight ends. So we just don't overthink this. Just continue to attack this matchup. Will he have ownership? Yes. Is it a surprise off the radar play? No, but you don't always need that. So that's what we're going to do with Evan Ingram. Plus, you look at the tight end position. It's a lot of solid options this week. So I think the ownership will spread itself out here. He will be one of the more highly owned players. If you're allergic to chalk, you want to avoid this play here in Evan Ingram. But I'm going to continue to target the Arizona defense with tight ends. Ingram, 9.8 targets per week. Arizona allowing 9.33 targets per week to the tight end position. Not to mention the most fantasy points to the position, and it's not even close. Sterling Shepard likely not playing in this one. We'll see about Saquon Barkley, but not many targets there for Daniel Jones. I expect Evan Ingram to be his primary target here against the Cardinals at these nice mid-range prices. All right, let's get you a quarterback here. We're going to go with Josh Allen of the Bills against the Dolphins. So Allen, no massive games so far this season, but it's been very consistent. Outside of that New England game, 18 or more DraftKings points in every single game this season. If you look back to his 2 games against the Miami Dolphins last season, this guy absolutely ripped this team to shreds, putting up 33.7 and 41.5 DraftKings points. It's when he went on his tear towards the end of the season, but a great matchup here. There's not a team in the league that's given up more fantasy production than the Miami Dolphins. Josh Allen, easily my favorite quarterback on this Week 7 slate against Miami. All right, we like Josh Allen. We're going to pair him up. That's right, little correlation here with wide receiver John Brown. So huge upside here for John Brown. Mid-range price tag. He had another guy. Hasn't had a massive game yet, but been pretty consistent. So cash games, you like the consistency there. Tournaments, that upside is coming. That ceiling is coming. Those multiple touchdown games are coming. And this is the matchup we could see that in. Miami, 9 touchdowns already allowed. 2 wide receivers. Dead last in DVOA against opponents' passing game. I think John Brown has a big day. Finds the end zone at least once. Hoping for twice here, but goes over 100 yards and smashes this salary. Love John Brown here against the Miami Dolphins. All right, it's time to take a look at my favorite play on the Week 7 slate. But before we do that, guys,
What is up, grinders? Holden Kushner here. It's a free crunch time today. So if you're new to RotoGrinders, listen up, because I got one of the best in the business with me, JSU, John Sarabian, who's in his Sunday uniform with a hoodie and a t-shirt, ready to kick your ass in DFS. How are you, buddy?
My Sunday uniform?
Yeah, I mean, it's a hoodie and a t-shirt. What the hell else am I seeing? You always wear the same t-shirt every week.
It's because I got like friggin' 8 of them.
Is it a DraftKings t-shirt?
DB loves this t-shirt too. DB, if you're out there, you know.
Yeah.
You know what's up.
We're going to get to a ton of your questions here in the premium chat. So if you're not a member yet, your question is not getting answered until you sign up. But we'll get everybody else's questions. So get them going, people. General outlook on the slate today, my man. I wasn't on Lazard all week, and I'm still not on him. Can you play him in tournaments?
No, I don't think so. It's just one of those things where you didn't see his increase until those guys went out, with injuries and stuff like that. So it would have been nice to have those guys out, or at least one of them out, but we don't. So I would stay completely off that. I do still like Rodgers a lot. It's tough because now who do you pair him with? But I do like him a lot as a GPP play, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, who the hell are we pairing him with is a good question. We might as well just get into that. So is it Allen? Is it Gordon? Is it Jones? Is it Graham?
It's probably MVS for me, honestly. If he's in, he's really cheap, and he's their top guy. I know they've struggled, but this is a get-right matchup against Oakland. Their secondary's not good. Rodgers could easily feast. I mean, here's the thing with Rodgers is he could, this could be Kumaro could have a touchdown. Jimmy Graham could even catch, like this Oakland team is that bad. They could do it with any of these guys. And Rodgers is still really good. So I like him against bad secondaries. So I like this game. This game's sneaky. I think it will, I think this game could shoot out. I love Josh Jacobs on the other side. Waller's really cheap on DK. So it's interesting.
Just real quick, I saw your conviction play again, going back to Calvin Ridley. I love Calvin Ridley. It's just been so inconsistent. Like, how do we count on him? Just because it's going to be a shootout and he'll be the number 3 option in a terrific offense?
Is that the only reason?
I don't know. You tell me. Is he super talented now? Is he getting enough targets?
No, listen, this kid is super talented. I believe in this kid's talent. But here's the thing. You're going to have Ramsey on the right side predominantly. I don't know if he's going to shadow Julio, but I know for a fact he plays mainly on the right side. Obviously, if he shadowed Julio, that would be even better. But Julio Jones plays 54% on the left side. So that'll get him against Ramsey for at least 54%. Even if they don't shadow him, that's half the game. And Ridley plays predominantly on the right side. I think it's around 62%, which is second highest on the slate. So we should get Ridley against Troy Hill for a good amount of snaps. Now, do they move Julio Jones around? That's a question that I don't know. I can't really answer. All I know is what they've done to date, and this is what they've done. They do move him around a little, but he does play more on the left, so he should see more Ramsey, and Ridley plays way more on the right, so he should see less Ramsey. That's why I like it. He's also cheap. He's very talented, and, I mean, they're also missing their safety too, the Rams are, so this isn't – Peters is gone now. Talib is injured. They're hurting. Besides Ramsey and Donald, this defense is really banged up.
Last thing, since it's a free crunch time today, how much of the tools did you use to find out where Julio's lining up, where the cornerbacks are lining up? I saw some of that with Josh ADHD. He comes out with some great stats every single week. What kind of tools are you using here on RotoGrinders?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously that tool that ADHD came out with is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I really like, if you guys aren't using it, like that's a great one. The Gridiron IQ tool, I've been looking at that a lot too. I love that. That's a new tool that they just came out with this year, I'm pretty sure. And then, I mean, obviously, like after that, like the projected ownership, I mean, Jamino and those guys, they've been really, really good this year, just crushing it, I think. So, I mean, you guys, you got to use all this stuff that they give you, obviously get your value out of the premium subscription. But those are 3 things that I mainly use. Obviously, if you go into Lineup HQ, you'll see, like, I have conviction plays. We've got core plays from Notorious, cash plays. So, just check those out. Those are really helpful, especially if you have a 1v1 in a GPP or in a cash thing and you want to see what these guys are on.
I love Gridiron IQ. It really just kind of simplifies a whole bunch of stuff, and then you can dig into it. Let's get to the questions here on the premium chat. Noble 150, Latavius or Freeman, Devontae Freeman, Latavius Murray on DK Cash. Do you like Latavius just as
I
just
don't. I really don't. In DK especially, on FanDuel, a little better price. I'm okay with it, but I still don't love it. Honestly, I like Jacobs a little more. I like Tevin Coleman a little bit more. I think they're gonna. I think San Francisco could run the ball 40 times in this game. Just like absolutely run the ball nonstop, bleed the clock. There's terrible weather out there. Just wet. It's going to be bad the entire game. So I like Tevin Coleman a lot. He's getting the goal line work. Yes, Breida does see red zone work, but Tevin Coleman's seeing most of the goal line carries, which is huge.
I'm with you. The only concern I have is because the weather's bad there with the rain, is that is the worst field in the NFL. But it's not enough to push me away from Tevin Coleman. I mean, if the guy touches the ball 20 times today again, 23, forget it. He gets 23, 25 touches, he's going to crush.
Right. And I mean, those tackles that are missing for them, they're going to want to run. They don't want those tackles they want them doing as little as possible in the pass blocking. They obviously want to run the ball and just keep running it the entire game. So if they get up, then I think you just see them continue to run the ball nonstop. I think Breida in GPPs is a really sharp play too. I like both those guys.
Mack or Jacobs, FanDuel GPP, asked Joe 136. Marlon Mack or Josh Jacobs? I love them both.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to lean, you said in FanDuel?
FanDuel GPP.
Yeah, so in FanDuel, I'm just going to lean Jacobs for the savings, but I don't mind Mack in a GPP. I'm really high on Jacobs. I read a stat earlier this week. Against 8 or more man boxes, Jacobs is averaging 6 yards per carry. And Green Bay, when they're playing defense against defending 8 or more man boxes, their defense is giving up, I think it's 5.9 yards per carry. Man. So even when they're trying to scheme to stop the run, they can't do it. It's just bad.
Raiders coming off a nice break. A couple of weeks ago, Gruden said he wanted to get Jacobs more involved. So here we go. Could be a nice spot for Jacobs today. I like that question. Nope, not smoking good. Totally sober. This guy, might act like I'm high, but I'm not. I'm sober. Weiner 2000, rank Tyler Boyd, Calvin Ridley, DD for FanDuel Cash. Boyd, Ridley, DD. I hate that I have Boyd in my cash game lineup, by the way, on FanDuel.
I think I'm going to go with
Ridley.
Oh, I love Ridley. I'm going to go Ridley 1, Tyler Boyd 2, and then I'm not really that high on DD. So I think those two guys, if you need 2 out of those 3, it's definitely those 2 guys for me.
Quick question though with that, like Tyler Boyd, I don't like him. I want the floor is okay. I don't see him having a blow up game today, even in a nice situation. I like him on DraftKings a little more. Do you like him?
Just because of the PPR? I mean, he's so cheap on FanDuel. Here's the thing too. If you expect Jacksonville to be up in this game, they're going to throw for most of this game. If you do expect that. So since he's going to get a ton of opportunity. I mean, they're without their left tackle, so that does worry me. But at the same time, he's just so cheap on FanDuel. I don't mind it honestly in cash. I think he has a solid floor.
Is Galladay, Ty, and Woods okay in cash? Yes.
Galladay, Ty, and Woods.
I think that's terrific.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not as high on Galladay as maybe some people are. I don't know if people are high on him, but I'm not as high on him. But I think for cash, he's okay.
You still love Jacobs with no Trent Brown? Yes.
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
it's a loss for sure. But at the same time, I believe Coach talk a lot too. I just believe Gruden is really trying to get him involved, whether it's the passing game too. Especially on DraftKings, he's $5K, just too cheap. And I gave you the stats already about Green Bay's run defense. Just even when they try and stop the run, they can't do it.
Yep, no doubt about it. Cheap wide receiver to replace Lazard in tournaments. I mean, there's not a lot of guys that are that low, man. You might have to rebuild your lineup because I don't know. I would think it's DraftKings, but even on FanDuel, man, that's rough. Because the bargain basement is Darius Slayton cheap enough on? I don't think he's cheap enough.
I don't really love too many cheap guys for tournaments, down by where Lazard is, but. I mean, one guy this is going to sound disgusting, but if it is a GPP, like Trevor Davis saw 75% of the snaps for Oakland. Like I know Zay Jones is inactive. It's not great. I'd much rather you play Waller or Jacobs, but if you
Duke Williams?
want someone,
Duke Williams.
I like John Brown. Xavier Howard out.
Yeah.
Now Jones is out, the safety. I was planning on fading John Brown before that news. And then when that news came out, both those guys were out. It put me on him because I'm just like, now it's that deep ball, man. He could easily catch 2 bombs. It's so hard. But Duke Williams would be okay.
The reason why Brown is GPP only for me is because the groin, man. I know he was out there. They said he looked good, but John Brown at 85%, is that fast enough? Because the speed is what completely gives him the edge. And it sounds like you're yes. I got a lot in GPP.
I say on FanDuel, I think you could play him in cash, but that's just me. I think he gets enough targets. I think he gets the volume. But I get it. I totally get it.
I wish he was the same price as Tyler Boyd so I can get him out of there. That'd be nice. Dalvin and Metcalf. This is Preston 2015. Dalvin and Metcalf or Freeman and Cup. I don't know if it's cash or GPP. That sounds like.
I'm going to lean Dalvin Metcalf.
You like DK today?
I don't really. I just don't like the other options very much. I don't like the other 2 options.
You don't like Cooper Kupp?
I don't mind Cooper Kupp at all. I just think that I don't know if it's GPP or cash. Like if it's cash, I don't mind that a little more. But if it's GPP, I think those 2, the other 2 wide receivers for cheaper are just much better options. And Kupp's going to be the higher owned of the 3. So if all that's put together, like in the beginning of the week, I thought Kupp might be the lowest owned of the 3 because he was priced up so much, especially on DK. But no, it seems like we haven't projected as, I think, the second highest wide receiver on the board right now, Jamino has. So if that's the case, I'm taking the 2 cheaper options. I like Cooks and then Woods, and even Gurley too. No one's really talking about Todd Gurley, but I really believe that game last week, that was like a maintenance game. I really believe so. They gave him 70% of the snaps up until the last week he played, where they upped him to 93%. And after that game, he gets an injury, a quad issue, whatever it is.
He was limping. He was
okay,
limping.
fine. So I think it was like a maintenance game. Maybe he was really hurt. I don't know. But I really think that they were just like, nope, give him the week off. We have a chance of being San Fran at home, and then we'll get him back. So that's my thought on it. I knew he was going to play this week, and it's fine. But I think he's a great GPP option.
Yep, and that might be a volume thing too. I mean, they're going to get Henderson involved, but goal line carries, use them in a pass game. I'm with you on Gurley, man. I got a little exposure to Gurley today. Let's keep going on. Golden Tate or Tyler Boyd in a DK GPP, asks Aberge.
Ooh, Golden Tate.
Haven't heard a lot on Tate this week.
He lines up in the slot. I like him in the slot.
Yeah.
It's a good matchup. He stays away from Peterson most of the game, so I like that.
Evan Engram, number 1 tight end for you?
Yeah, especially on FanDuel. It's not like on FanDuel, it's not even close. On DraftKings, in cash, you want to play Mark Andrews, maybe a Darren Waller. I can understand that in cash just because they're so much cheaper. But Evan Engram is the number 1 guy, clearly.
Hunter Henry
on
DK is cash viable.
He's so cheap. Is cash viable. Yeah, but we got to remember too, most of his damage was done in the 4th quarter. The defense was playing prevent. They already had the game wrapped. So just keep that in mind. I'm not saying he can't, hit value at 4K because he can absolutely do that. But I'm just saying keep that in mind.
Yeah, he's just so cheap on DraftKings. It's like, By the way, when you were building your lineups, are most of your players from the 1:00 games?
Yeah, so I have the guys I have in the 4:00 games are pretty much in tournaments. Keenan Allen, Derrick Henry,
Carson.
I don't have any Carson. I took a stand on Carson.
Really?
I'm fading Carson. It's
all right.
Just in tournaments. For me, I'm just taking a stand. I had to take a stand on either him, Fournette, or Barkley. At the ownership they were going to see. And I took a stand on him. I played some more Gurley, so we'll see.
Man, my big decision came down to Dalvin Cook or Saquon Barkley and moving some other pieces around. I'm going to play it safe with Cook on FanDuel today. But
Okay.
Barkley, man, it's just like I'm overweight in GPP on Barkley. It's unfair.
Yeah, I mean, it stinks now because we had that easy cheap piece that we could have in our lineups in Lazard to like get a ton of shares of Barkley, but he's got to be like he is in such a good spot against Arizona. It's not even funny. Like they're so bad at stopping the run. They can't do it. They're going to get better against the pass because they got Peterson back, but they're so bad at stopping the run. Like you'll see Barkley's going to have a good game. If he sees his full snaps, he's going to have a good game.
And not only that, I mean, how about Daniel Jones? How much better is he going to get? Now he has a guy to dump it off to. They actually, we didn't talk about the Giants much in the preseason because Eli Manning sucked, and the guys around him just weren't going to take care of business. Well, I know most of you were making fun of Daniel Jones. I like Josh Allen and Daniel Jones. You rip the guys. I absolutely fall in love with them. But they're a good offense now. Like, I'm not going to say competent every single week, but there's certain spots, and today is a great spot. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, listen, I'm not going to lie and say that I was high on Daniel Jones because I wasn't. But I wasn't also ripping him on social media and other places like some people were. I just really, honestly, I didn't really know much about the kid. Like, I seen him play a few times, but I didn't know enough to feel like I should voice my opinion on it. I just didn't think he was actually, from the 4 games I saw, good enough to be that draft pick. But, they did. And, he's looked pretty good to date. And now he gets Arizona. Like, it's a pretty good matchup for him. I think he's sneaky in GPPs.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The only problem is, like, who do you pair him with on the other side? David Johnson, who's playing now. So,
yeah, I think that's who you pair him with, honestly, Chase
Edmonds.
If you want to get really weird in GPPs, yeah.
Yeah, on FanDuel, I think Chase Edmonds is an option just because I think he might have more carries than David Johnson. You know this, right? Like, they're using him in a run game a whole bunch. And David Johnson is almost like a wide receiver now who gets carries too. D Sopel, Chris Carson, or Kerryon Johnson, DK GPP.
I'm not on Kerryon Johnson, so I'm just going to say Chris Carson because I don't really like Kerryon this week.
M-Stash 99, DK Cash, Sanu Henry TY, Sanu Henry or TY, or Jacobs Boyden Woods. I haven't got your official stance on TY today.
I really like TY today. This is, it's one of those things where I'm not stacking this game because the Colts are they're bleeding the clock, running the ball on teams, keeping the other offense off the field. Like, it's tough for me to take more than 2 options in a lineup from this game. So you won't see me with more than 2 players from this game in one lineup. Like, I think it's not a good full stack just because of how, the Colts are going to want to speed up the game, run the ball, control the clock. So if you want to play math, like, I think it's fine, but I wouldn't play. I would play 2 options in a lineup, and that's it. I would not full stack this game.
Hey, don't forget Pierre Desir's back in too, so they got a little bump there on the Colts defense. Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, FanDuel Cash. Kyler or Josh Allen, FanDuel Cash.
Kyler or Josh Allen, Josh Allen.
You kind of said Josh Allen with a stink face, with a gas face. No, you don't like him?
No, for cash, I think he's fine. I don't really love him for GPPs, but he's fine for cash.
We need him to go Lamar Jackson with like 150 yards.
I'm just seeing this in chat right now. Someone posted something from Twitter about Lazard working with the first team.
First team. Fine. Have a good time with that.
Yeah.
Put him in a GPP. Maybe it'll pay off. I have no exposure.
Listen, I have no idea. Now this report comes out. It comes out, 10 minutes before the game, whatever it is. Like, if he plays and he plays a good amount of snaps, then he's fine. I wouldn't trust it in cash, but if you want to play in a GPP now with this report, like, go for it.
I mean, there's just options ahead of them. Let's say MVS, Allison, they're both active, right? And Jimmy Graham. And they can run it with Aaron Jones. I'm off him. I've been off him all week. I think it's nice that they called the play for him, but I'm not going to get too excited about that. I don't know what site this is, but he wants Tate, Galladay, or John Brown in cash. Tate, Galladay, John Brown.
One of those three?
Yeah.
I would list them Brown, Tate, Galladay.
On FanDuel and DK?
On FanDuel, that's how I would list them. On DK, yeah, that's how I would list them.
Preston 2015 again. And DK Cash, are you okay with Waller as my tight end and Mark Andrews as my flex? Can you go 2 tight ends in a cash game?
Yes, absolutely. I think so.
You're fine with that today?
I'm fine with that, yeah.
I'm not okay with that on FanDuel. I'm okay with that
on DK. I think on DK with those 2 guys, I'm cool with it, yeah.
How high are you on Andrews today?
I love Andrews. Now, it stinks because actually with Brown in there, he's even a better play because Brown would clear out that if he's, running deep routes, it's clearing out that underneath and the middle stuff. But I still like him. Like I just, they don't really have many options, for Lamar Jackson to go to. And he clearly loves throwing Andrews. Like he's just too cheap too.
Guy wants to know Brandon Cooks or Robert Woods, Mr. TJ Roto.
Brandon Cooks.
You like the Cooks? I like Cooks at home a little bit more.
So I like Cooks because Atlanta is one of the worst teams at pressure on the quarterback. They're second lowest in sacks. And I think one of the reasons why Cooks has kind of not had a good season is because they haven't really had time Jared Goff hasn't really had a ton of time in the pocket to develop those deep routes, which Cooks runs. So I think you're going to see Cooks and Goff hit on a deep route or two where, he has that big play in him just because there's not going to be a lot of pressure around Goff.
Any Melvin Gordon love? Asked Nietzsche 74.
So I'm not on Melvin Gordon. We have seen him kind of like slowly go up in snaps. I think if he's cheap enough where you could do it, but Tennessee is a pretty solid defense, especially against the run. Like I think they're pretty stout. So, I mean, I'm going to hold off one more week and then we'll see from there. But Eckler's still involved and he should be. Like, honestly, he looks way better than Gordon, but we don't have time to get into that.
Well, here's the news side of it, okay? He had 8 carries. Melvin Gordon came out and bitched about it. He was very upset that he had 8 carries. Anthony Lynn, their head coach, was asked about it. He says, I got to get some of the young guys out of there. So I think they're going to give the ball to Melvin Gordon, but is volume going to be okay today against a pretty good defense? We'll find out. I'm not on Melvin Gordon. Who's the top 3 cash quarterbacks on DK? Matty Cap wants to know. Top 3 cash quarterbacks.
Oh, so I think you just have to put Matt Ryan and Jared Goff up there at 1 and 2, and I'm going to put
Josh Allen.
I want to say Lamar Jackson for 300 more. I like a little more, but yeah, Josh Allen would be 4 probably, 4 or 5. Russ Wilson's 4, Josh Allen 5.
This is a good comment. Very, very good comment. Jameis says 89. Just play Lazard. Allison is a bum. You don't hear bum.
I agree. Actually, Allison is a bum. And you know what? Also, I believe in quarterbacks who express like who they like and who they like to throw to. I really believe in that stuff. So when Rodgers comes out and kind of voices opinion on guys like Lazard, Kumaro, which we've seen, like we saw Kumaro last year, we've seen Lazard this year, like that like means a lot because I really believe just like Will Fuller with Deshaun Watson, like even though Will Fuller's not the best receiver there, obviously D-Hop is, but Deshaun Watson loves Will Fuller. They're like best friends. I believe in all this stuff. So when you see a quarterback really like someone, speak out for them to play. That means a lot. So
Aaron Rodgers' best friend is Jimmy Graham. It's his best friend. He said it 3 times this year. He's trying to get the ball.
Here's the thing, though. Jimmy Graham's not good. He's just not good, like at all.
Thoughts on Tevin Coleman with Raheem Mostert coming back? That does nothing to me. Tevin Coleman's going to.
The only thing it does is if the 49ers are up like 35-7, they could put Mostert in
Fine.
give him some carries at the end of the third and fourth. But by then, Tevin Coleman might already have 2 touchdowns. So I mean, I'm cool with it.
Valdez Scantling or DK Metcalf, FanDuel GPP, Cuban Raft Riders wants to know.
I mean, I'm gonna say MVS. I don't know who Lazard's in the first team for. I think everyone's just lost now. Like, I'm lost on this situation. Like, if he's working with the first team, like, is Kumaro out? Is is MVS out? Like, are they just gonna rotate these guys? Which I think might happen. Actually, I think that is probably the most logical thing. Is Lazard maybe he sees a few more snaps. But maybe they just rotate these guys all in because they're clearly not 100% healthy, MVS and Allison. But
quick question from TJ Roto: rank the defenses: Bears, Niners, Bills. Let's just go opposite order: Bills, Niners, Bears. 1, 2, 3. Bills have got to be 1, right?
If we're taking out price, then I think I would go 49ers, Bills, and Bears.
Ooh, 49ers over the Redskins.
Here's the reason why I like the 49ers. And the short of it is that clearly Washington wants to run the ball. The thing that 49ers have been really good at is stopping the run. Their front seven is so good that they're making so I believe they're making their secondary look even better than it actually is because they're so good up front. And what's going to happen is if they put the Washington Redskins in 3rd and long situations in these slippery conditions, they're going to need to throw, and that's when bad things are going to happen. So that's what I believe will happen. I really like this defense. Not that I don't like the Bills, not that I don't like the Bears. Those are my top 3 defenses, but I love the Niners.
I like the Colts today for a cheaper option too, because Watson's going to get sacked. It's just ugly over there. And Desir's back. All right, let's just answer the questions with names. Single entry, quick question. Mac and Woods or Gurley and TY?
Gurley and TY.
Knew it. I'm there with you. Is the Lizard King and Darrell Henderson okay in a GPP? Everything's okay in the GPP if the players are playing.
Yeah.
Thoughts on Fournette? Where's Fournette? Top 5 today for you?
Yeah, it's just since he's so bad, their defense is awful right now. So yeah.
Thoughts on Watkins, Hopkins, and GPPs? It's fine.
Watkins, Hopkins.
That's fine.
Watkins isn't.
Watson, Hopkins. My bad.
Watson,
Hopkins.
Yeah. That's fine. I'm not really on the quarterbacks in that game today, but it's fine. I don't mind it.
Cole Beasley, DK Metcalf, DK GPP.
DK Metcalf.
Yeah, I just got back from Seattle. We don't have any more questions, so we're all good here as we're like 10 seconds from lock anyways. But, man, they love that team out there. I lived there 20 years ago. Nothing. Now, everywhere. You just see the number 12. Great football. It's a great sports town. So they're pumped up about this game today. And for the guy that's saying 2 touchdowns defensively for the Ravens, Russell Wilson turning it over. I mean, it better be Chris Carson fumbling again if that's going to happen. Because
it could.
It could. You're right. All right, we're at lock. Galladay or Hilton? We had a quick question. Who do you prefer? And it's Hilton.
Hilton.
Yeah. I know what you're going to say by the end of this show now. Can you go in a DK GPP? Can I go Kyler and Metcalf or Brissett and Tate? Well, you don't like Brissett, so it's got to be Kyler and Metcalf, right?
I would lean the Kyler Metcalf one, yeah.
Yeah. We'll see.
It's not even about the reason why I don't like the quarterbacks is just because I feel like it's gonna be the clock is gonna run. It's gonna be one of those games where just like the pace stats, like they're just gonna go up, and with running the ball. It's not going to be one of those games where like I don't see like a huge back and forth where the quarterbacks are just throwing all over the field, but I might be wrong.
I am way too chalky today. I differentiated myself in 2 places. All right. What do you think Fournette's at FanDuel Cash? Take a guess. Take a stab.
Fournette, FanDuel Cash. I want to say 70%.
91.
Yes. Oh, okay.
Everybody loves him. Cooper Kupp. 45%. Our boy Calvin Ridley, 23%. Tevin Coleman, 8% in cash. That kind of makes me feel good now. I like that.
I don't think many people were on. I think it's just because there's so many like running backs that get carries there. People just kind of get scared and stay away. Yeah.
All right, tournament. Single entry, $5 single entry. Fournette, 56%. Wow, this looks quite a bit alike. Ingram's 29%. Coleman's up to 15% in cash and GPP. I don't like that. Way too chalky in this lineup. Yeah, and Cup's at 41%. So that's just a couple things I got from there. Is DK loaded, man? Did they decide to get this going yet? I mean, you got all these shirts. Can you just call them and tell them to get it going a little more? It's ridiculous.
Best story about these shirts actually is that like I just there was a live final like 3 or 4 years ago, and it was for the NBA live final where they just put shirts all over like chairs, and I just start like taking every single medium I could find, and I literally just like ripped off like 7 shirts. There was probably like a bunch of people left with no shirts on. I walked back and like threw them. Yeah, it was great.
Jerk.
I know. I'm a jerk.
The only thing they got up is like the 1 o'clock. It's the early games. So I'll just real quick, I'll read you my $5 single entry early games, and then we can get out of here. Or you could tell us a couple plays. Matt Ryan's 14%. Chase Edmonds 13.3. Jacobs at 35%. So other people besides for less like Jacobs. Julio's 5%. Woods at 12%. Darius Slayton 4%. Ingram's at 19%. Fournette's 53%. The Colts are at 9%. So that's a little too chalky.
We got someone in chat just said Rodgers on Fanduel is 2.8%.
Well, then
must be in a tournament. I love that.
He's gonna win some money if he goes off. You know.
Yeah. So someone asked just real quick. Someone asked me. Yeah, cash plays. Let me just run through it real quick. Fournette, Jacobs, Ridley, Tevin Coleman. And I think that's everyone that locked.
Is that Draftkings?
That was Draftkings. Yeah.
So you played some guys later.
I had the 49ers defense. What's up?
Yeah, I couldn't pay up for it. I thought you had a lot of 1 o'clock guys.
I did. Didn't I list like 5 or 6?
Yeah, I mean, I went like 8.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it pissed me off that that's why I played a bunch of 1 o'clock tournaments, because I liked everybody from the 1 o'clock. All right, let's get out of here, man. Good show. I like your cash play. And who's your number 1 GPP play today? It's going to differentiate yourself. Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers was the guy I had the most exposure to. So,
all right, good. Adios, amigos. Good luck today, unless you're playing me. I feel much better about my lineups. We'll see what happens. JSU, good luck today.
Thanks,
you got a lot of Yahoo going on?
Yeah, I didn't get, I think I got like 10 lineups in that $10 contest they go in. So I didn't get enough time to get a ton in there, just with all the news and stuff I was scrambling. But yeah, I'm in there. So,
All right, I'm going to go listen to the CBS theme music. So let me get out of here and start turning the game. Oh, it's so much better than Fox.
Oh, God, I just turned the volume off all the games. Like I literally,
CBS?
I can't even listen.
Or Fox.
I can't even listen to anyone. Like I just I literally just turn the volume off.
Dude, during the off season, I'm jonesing for NFL. I'm like, da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Come on, man.
I'd rather listen to myself.
You know what? I'd rather leave because this is ridiculous, silly talk. Bye, everybody.
Oh, yeah, I love that. I love Josh Jacobs beasting. We're ending on that.
Yeah, bye-bye now. Adios.